All right, we'll call to order the Ferguson Township Board of Supervisors meeting for Tuesday, July 15th to order. Please rise as you're able and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. You may be seated. And next up, we will recognize the Assistant Township Manager to give the meeting procedures and to call the roll.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the members of the board, staff, and public for joining us this evening for the July 15th regular meeting of the Ferguson Township Board of Supervisors. This meeting has been properly advertised in accordance with the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act as a hybrid meeting with the option to attend virtually and in person here in the main meeting room. If you are in attendance virtually using the WebEx platform and wish to speak on behalf of an agenda item, please say your name, municipality of residence, and the topic you wish to speak on when the chair calls on you. If you are attending in person with us in the main meeting room and wish to speak on behalf of an agenda item, please address the board at the podium and state your name, municipality of residence, and the topic you wish to speak on. Members of the public attending using the WebEx platform are asked to remain muted during the meeting to prevent any ambient noise from disrupting the meeting. If a member of the public is acknowledged by the chair, they may unmute their microphone for their question or comment. Secondly, board members are asked to indicate their name when motioning or seconding a motion so that the minutes may accurately reflect the action taken. Finally, a roll call of the Board of Supervisors will now be taken to ensure that all members can hear and interact using the WebEx meeting platform. Please indicate that you are here when your name is called. Mr. Thompson.
Here.
Mr. Patterson.
Here.
Ms. Stevens.
Here.
Mr. Heller.
Here.
Ms. Strickland.
Here.
Chair, you have a quorum.
All right. Was there any board members that had any thing on the agenda that they wanted to adjust or modify? Yes, Mr. Patterson.
Yes, yes, please. I do see we have some members of the community for a couple of those land development plans, so I'd ask that we pull those forward to number 2 under
After the consent agenda?
unfinished or new under new business. Yes.
Okay. All right, we'll move those up so those will follow after the reports and presentations on the consent agenda. Let's see, that was items 7 and 8, which consists of, what was that? Post-final land development plan for cottages and final land development plan for the START lab. So yeah, we'll get that moved up there. The Board of Supervisors did meet in an executive session on June 25th regarding a matter of personnel. Another announcement, the Center County Metropolitan Planning Organization, the CCMPO, will be holding an open house and public hearing on the Center County Long Range Transportation Plan 2055 and the 2025 Center County Air Quality Conformity Determination Report, July 22nd, 3 p.m. To 4:30 p.m. session 1 and 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. session 2 at the Center Region Council of Governments Building, Forum Room at 2643 Gateway Drive, State College, PA. I believe there is information on the front page of the Ferguson Township website, as well as even somewhere on the COG website for your reference if you want more details or even to speak with any of the appropriate contacts on that. And that will then bring us to public comment. So at this time, we'll take public comment for any items that are not on the agenda. We welcome the public to come up to the podium that's here in the room. Try to keep your comments to about 5 minutes. And just give us your name and neighborhood of residence. And yeah, so this time anyone want to come forward? Yep, feel free to come forward there.
I don't have enough of that, but so what do I need to do? Sorry.
Name, township, resident.
Oh, okay. My name's
Your comments.
Kyle Harpster. I live on 990 West Pine Grove Road, PA Furnace, PA. I'm lived there for 32 years, I believe now. And I just want to ask a question I don't understand. I don't understand why you did this the way that you did this. Like the drainage, I don't know why you left the road the way that you did. I don't know why you just didn't, like when they went to go do the berm, why you didn't just do the whole road in one go. I don't, and now I guess you're now hiring Paul Baker to now fix the road, I guess, is what my understanding was from talking to one of the people that work down there. Yeah, and like it just kind of it's kind of weird that you guys also just like decided that for some reason you wanted to tar and chip the road like 2 winters ago or whatever, and like it didn't last very long. It got destroyed last winter like completely, and it like was really bad, and you guys just made it worse by like doing whatever you're doing. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was gonna say, be best to have somebody from staff follow up with you, get your contact information there. Looks like,
Have you spoken to any township
yeah.
staff, engineers, or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
When I showed up to talk to him, he said he was busy. So, but
Very good, thank you.
Yep. All right, thank you. And, yep, okay. Next up. Yeah, feel free.
As long as it's not an agenda item.
I think,
Just gonna add a
I
couple of
think they have a schedule, another scheduling.
the agenda. It's
They
not-
said in the call. Yep, feel free to come forward. Yeah, I think.
Hello, my name is Nandu Desai, I live in Stonebridge, this is Beth, and I'm also the neighbor of ours. And so she just had a couple of comments she wanted to add from our fellow members, which we included in the copy, and we submitted for the record.
Oh, no.
Okay, I'm Beth Van Horn from 1840 Kings Court. First of all, we want to thank you for including the Penn State ARL noise issue on your township agenda. We have comments that we wanted to share from Rick Edmiston from 1846 Red Line Drive. He said he's very concerned that this facility will be able to meet the current noise limits established by Ferguson Township if they will be running 2 turbine tests simultaneously. As a result, I'd like to understand how they plan to mitigate the noise and keep it within the Ferguson Township ordinance level. In addition, we'd also like to know if PSU and Ferguson Township are involved in any negotiations regarding making changes to the current noise-related ordinances, such as noise level as well as days and times of operation. If so, he would like to know the details of what's being discussed. Lastly, we would like to understand if there are any current plans to further expand the START facility in the future. Additional comments: does the plan of action including monitoring the noise compliance by ARL? What are the permissible noise levels in the ordinance? And can interested Stonebridge residents attend the township meetings where the issue of START expansion is on the agenda?
I guess the answer to the last question is yes.
Yeah.
I'll send an email of this to Kim as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, understand.
Yeah, and we did have a copy of their comments that we can attach to the agenda, follow up for the board to look at. And we do have this item on the agenda for a little bit later, so there may be an opportunity that those questions may get answered, or else it sounds like you have some contact with Kim and some of the other stakeholders that they can maybe even follow up with you later on. So thank you for your comments there. Any other public comment in the room? If not, we'll give a moment for anyone online. Okay, seeing none. We do have a busy agenda. We welcome everyone to stay for the entire meeting, but we do understand if you have any other scheduling commitments, or anyone may feel free to leave or come in at any time there. But we do welcome everyone to stay and thank them for your attendance. Next up, we have the approval of minutes from the June 17th meeting. of the Board of Supervisors. If there are no pending corrections, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
This is Patty, so moved.
And do we have a second?
Is Amari second?
Okay, motion by Ms. Stevens, second by Mr. Patterson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. All right, next up, pending no DEI activities and acknowledgements or authority boards and commission reports, we will start with our Cog and Regional Committee reports, and first up is the Finance Committee.
Of course it is. All right, yeah, I'd like to say, first one, but a couple different things I wanted to focus on. Again, just running through the notes here. We were talking a little bit more about the economic impacts from federal agencies, et cetera. Concerns were raised around electric vehicles and green initiatives, and it sounds like COG is going to be focusing a little bit more on, hey, if we need to buy something, let's go ahead and jump in and do it a little sooner rather than later, just based on what might be happening at the federal level. One of the main discussion topics was also the John Hess softball complex and the master plan there. The master plan was the motion for finance to move the master plan forward was accepted, so that was passed. And I will say there was a lot of good discussion around what the master plan means moving forward. Going with a 3-field option in the sense that as finance, we wouldn't be doing our due diligence if we, of course, rubber stamp things. And looking at the future plan there, really confirming that the future plan is not an action to start moving in a direction or to start investing money, et cetera, but rather get the master plan established, move forward, and then plan accordingly through the normal processes of COG, such as going through, we'll say, the Parks and Rec, then facilities, and finance, et cetera. So one of the topics during that time was really essentially the idea that finance, one point that I brought up there is that finance would have to act more of the judge, jury, and executioner in that, because again, if we think about 2 committees prior to finance getting any approvals or plans going down the road, it's going to probably hit finance, and we'll have to make, I think, maybe some tough decisions around what happens there or what doesn't happen there. So there was some discussion around clear project timelines and really asking for that from staff. And then, of course, moving forward and including in those project timelines the financial components, because we don't have an idea as to the total cost of what a lot of this would look like in the future. So that was a major topic of discussion. And then we moved on to one of the items that is pretty much a standing item, is the fund balance policy update. So we looked at fire protection and EMS. I will say that we reduced the required minimum operating balance from 45 to 30 days for the fire protection side of the house. So again, Chief Kaufman was there and really offered some good perspective on what they were planning and feeling comfortable with a 30-day residual. The other part of the conversation too was related to what happens to any money that might be saved. Does it go back to the township? Do we get a credit for the future? We anticipate that both things will be offered, would the township like a credit, or would you just like, a check? I think the credit would probably be in most townships' interest, but we'll cross that bridge if we do if there are residuals from any of the things going forward. I will say, not to point out, but we do have the COG Executive Director and Finance Director in the audience for a later agenda item. So if I missed or misstated anything, I also welcome their thoughts. But that's pretty much it. Happy to answer questions going forward.
Any questions? Yes,
Your
Mr. Patterson.
vote on the Hess Field.
The vote was a yes because it was just the master plan. Okay. And the master plan, again, as clearly stated in the meeting, was not approval to go ahead and start developing. So that's why we have to kind of keep an eye on that. And I did share, I'm sorry.
No.
Okay. I did share that what I've seen happen locally is that once the master plan is established, that seems to be the green light go. And all of a sudden, money and things just start moving toward it, and we say, well, that's on the master plan, so therefore, we can just keep rolling. That's what I'm trying to avoid with the conversations that we're having in those meetings, as well as, again, kind of figuring out where we can influence that. Again, knowing it will come Parks and Rec, then facilities, and then finance, and then general forum, or executive and general forum. So, just giving folks a heads up, that is coming.
Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Strickland.
I agree with approving the master plan. I thought that it looked fine, so I think that's good. I think there's just always gonna be concern with something like this and this large, because it will go back to the authority. We only provide the funds. They've provided the master plan, they'll tell us what they're gonna prioritize, and we just yes or no it. And so, but not on a minor detail level, just really, you know, largely because of funding. So as with Whitehall, you know, we don't get a lot of say in what goes on. So I think it's just a, you know, a reminder that, you know, that we will not have much say after this. So we will have say in when we fund it, but only us. You know, we're only one vote of that
Right.
puzzle, you know, of the funding partners. So we don't necessarily say yay or nay. We'll just have our one vote out of, you know, out of the five. So just something to keep in mind.
Yes, and to that, what I'll say, and what folks will maybe have heard me say in the past, from a financial perspective, sometimes, we've all played Monopoly, right? I would think we've all played Monopoly, folks in the audience have played Monopoly. Sometimes you just have to go around the board. You don't buy anything, you hope you don't get any major bills. So I'm looking at this, especially knowing how grants and other things might, or considering how grants and other revenue might be impacted. This might be a time that we just go around the board. So
Right.
just kind of planting that seed for ongoing conversations, however they should manifest. Yes?
I'll just say, and this will come up later, so I'll just, you know, I'll hold comments for when we talk about HES in the strategic guide. So we'll get back to this later, but, you know, I know Harris really wants HES done.
Yes.
So I think there will be interest in moving forward with this. So, but again, I agree with approving the master plan. It needed to be updated. I thought it looked good. You know, the park needs to get movement. So I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot of good feedback on that, and I've sometimes noticed that when there's a master plan, well, there's a master plan, we gotta do it. Well,
Yes.
just because I put something on paper, if I don't have the money or something of higher priority comes about, just because there's a master plan doesn't necessarily mean you pull the trigger when, you know, it's not, when some other component is not yet ready, or not ready for, you know, so,
The way I'll say it is, just because we could, doesn't mean we should.
that too, you know. Next up will be Human Resources Committee, and, I was gonna say, I've really went on and on in our meetings about the, code of conduct policy, and just meeting etiquette, so, you know, unless anyone has any questions. And of course, the executive director of COG is in attendance as well, and we have talked about this in our meetings several times. Yes,
Just one, what's the output? Is there any additional code of conduct type of language or
So-
correction, documentation?
After consulting with the solicitor, it appears pretty much we are going to add to the existing meeting etiquette guidelines, just emphasizing that if you are receiving information in executive session, it is meant to be kept confidential because there is legally privileged information that, you know, shouldn't be disseminated publicly for one reason or another. And, you know, it is also a part of the Sunshine Act where, you know, matters of personnel or legal can, you know, be discussed, you know, in private. And also, I believe there's also going to be just a, you know, re-emphasis that your oath of office and your responsibility should, you know, you do have a responsibility to act in the best interest of your municipality and constituents. So, you know, just being mindful. I I know one thing we've talked about a lot, like, you do have, like, some immunity, like, in a meeting when speaking, but, like, if you were to go outside the meeting and, like, say something on Facebook, or, I guess even in a, I think there was an example of even a press conference, just somebody giving out their, of an elected official giving their unsolicited opinion, you are not necessarily protected, and that could, depending on what you say, it could lead you into legal issues of one form or another, so.
Thanks.
So yeah, just common sense. Be mindful of what you say. So. Anything else for HR? If not, the executive committee. Executive committee, we just moved forward the 6C that we will be speaking of this evening. Also did move forward a proclamation of appreciation honoring the YMCA of Center County that I believe the general forum will be voting on at our next general forum meeting. I got the draft agenda for our next executive committee meeting, so I would imagine we will meet in July for general forum, but we'll see what comes out of that meeting, and you'll all be notified if there is a meeting, so. Any questions on executive committee? If not, facilities committee.
Facilities committee, fairly straightforward there. We have a couple of items in queue. Number one being Hessfield. I was the lone no vote on that plan. Not that the plan didn't look fine. It absolutely is the kickstart to the next step, which is going and figuring out what to do next. And at least as I heard from this board, we're essentially not interested in paying for any more parks right now, or any upgrades to parks. We're like, take care of what you have right now. So that's, for that reason, I was the lone no vote in that meeting. Just because, again, it has been traditionally kickstarting other things, not like, we might do something later. It's always, we're going to do something later. So I wasn't interested in playing that game. The other thing was, in other news, there's an energy report. I think it was comparing 2018 to 2024 in terms of how much energy was used at the COG buildings, and there have been improvements across, through the years. So there's some buildings that are completely energy efficient, so they're doing what they can, and it's been positive. But in other cases, there's just been attention to being more efficient with the use of the building. So kudos to COG for that. That's all I have.
Any questions on facilities? Climate Action Sustainability Committee.
I'm sorry, it's not on the agenda.
It's some weirdly here.
I know it's
but
on that one.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yes, the
but
climate action
I was gonna say,
sustainability.
you didn't meet or?
No, we met, actually
okay.
on Monday, yes. So, give a couple updates from the Climate Action Sustainability Committee meeting. There was a discussion around the environmental purchasing policy, and there seems to be a recommendation that the purchasing policy concerning the environmental side should be included in the overall procurement policy at COG, and not an appendix or an aside, or oh, by the way, dust this other document off if you really want to see what we're doing. So I applauded and I appreciated that conversation just around, how we want to incorporate those things potentially going forward. Again, I think historically we've heard, even in maybe it was a general forum meeting or it was a finance meeting months and months ago, where we were talking about some of the environmental approaches and what we should be considering moving towards electric vehicles. And the question was asked, well, is that in policy? And somebody said, well, no, but some supervisor mentioned it at X point, so many years ago, but nobody remembered who. But it never really had made its way to a purchasing policy that I understood that was really enacted. So that conversation's ongoing. I thought it was good. And also, where do we want to move? A couple different things. There were some recommendations too that came out of that, and a timeline where they want to create an internal task force, pilot some emissions tracking tools, and also position COG to integrate green fleet purchases. So there's some timeline events that want to happen and some recommendations that they have. Pam and crew are going to be looking at that and providing more information and details as we go forward. And then the second item was the sustainability coordinator. We reviewed some of the AmeriCorps work that was done by Lydia Neuhauser. And again, really great community outreach. If we think about the community engagement group, there were 15 starting participants in there. They've engaged with over 200 people in the community in various roles as mentors, work with capstone students, as well as some scheduling activities. So folks that are interested in the environmental stewardship are getting out there, having deeper conversations. One of the interesting things that did come up is that AmeriCorps, we have heard, right, that funding has been cut, etc. What I learned and what we learned in that meeting was that it seems like AmeriCorps is back on. And I say that with multiple caveats. And what I think is important for us is it sounds like PennServe will fund other programs, including AmeriCorps, during these uncertain times. So it looks like it has continued funding, but I don't believe it's well established or confirmed too much into the future. But it is still they are still trying to understand what's going on with AmeriCorps with this level of uncertainty, but it sounds like there are funding streams for it. That was a takeaway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, I was gonna say, I just caution that
Yeah.
AmeriCorps, because I think even when I brought it up, there was like a court injunction, and I think even between when I first heard that information and presented to the board, there may have been something or another change even within that time, so just fluid. Any questions for Mr. Heller? If not, we have a packed department report. I don't know if the manager would like to highlight anything, or if we just want to present any questions to the manager on the report.
I will provide just an update in that the manager's report, or excuse me, the administration section of the department report was updated, I believe as early as today, so there were some additions that were included. There's been a great deal of correspondence, copies of correspondence advocating on behalf of the current legislation that's being considered at this point in time for the local government entities in Pennsylvania to have the option to increase local service tax from $56 to $156. And so there's been advocacy taken to support that bill. The letter is included in the department report along with several other letters. PML did respond to our letter requesting for their assistance, and they put forth recommendation that we engage PEL, Pennsylvania Economy League, as well as DCD's office to see if they would come and present on revenue options that could be advantageous for Ferguson Township. So we've issued correspondence with the request for a presentation to the Board of Supervisors. Again, all of those correspondence are included in the agenda packet, along with several other updates, not just for or from administration, but representing the other departments as well. So with that stated, happy to answer any questions. And if not, the report is included with the agenda.
Report?
Looks like Mr. Heller has something.
I just want to say for our previous conversations, thank you for leaning into looking at other revenue streams and really engaging others outside to say, what can we be doing differently? And
Absolutely.
thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
I have a few questions. I guess the first one was on the police report.
Okay.
There was a increase in disorderly part 2 crimes. That was just interested. Was that like just one massive party that got busted, and so now we're like super up for the year, or you know, it was pretty significant, like 20%, 30% higher.
There wasn't any specific event that fueled that. That's
Okay.
been a trend that's just sort of been on the uptick this year. I've glanced through those numbers, and I haven't seen anything particularly alarming to tie that to one single event or one trend.
Okay. And then you had like, and then on another note, there were citations were up drastically for the year. Curious if there have been over time, at least between last year and this year, there's been more let it slide, and we're like, we're not doing this anymore. We're gonna stick to our ordinance, or help me understand that increase in citations.
Sure.
Please.
Absolutely. So you'll probably have noticed, I look back through board reports throughout the year prior to when I took over crafting them. And there's been a slow growing trend throughout the year of an increase in traffic citations that corresponds to an increase in traffic stops. So citizen complaints for traffic enforcement are the #1 request for service we tend to field from the public. And we made it a priority this year to encourage accountability with our staff and making sure they're responding to those complaints, they're being visible in those areas. The citation rate itself is up from last year, but not to a degree that hasn't fluctuated in years past. So I don't think our officers are particularly frustrated or citing more people out of a lack of tolerance. We have a younger police force than we've had in a number of years. With those younger groups, you tend to get more proactive policing, more self-initiated policing, and more of that fervor to get out there and respond to public requests. So that's where I think you're seeing the citations up corresponding to traffic stops being up. And I believe last meeting you mentioned the DUI statistics being up, and I think that's all just tied together to those increased stop and increased presence.
Mm-hmm. Interesting enough, they were down this month, or at least June, last month. It was 8, it was 5, and then 8. It's kind of up and down, but cool, thank you. It's interesting. So we still have Part 1 crimes, assault, theft. We still have Part 2 crimes, traffic stop citations. We still have other cases that you're taking of just checking on houses and things like that. So and it seems on the whole, there's been no change in like the level of service that you've given. Is that accurate? Maybe from what the data I've seen. Just curious, like you're still delivering the same level of service, irrespective of over the last, let's just say 6 months now. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I believe we're still at the same level of service we've been at in years past.
Okay. Sorry, I was gonna, So, and we haven't had a decrease in, does anybody know, decrease in immigrants to our town? Does anybody know that answer?
We don't track.
We don't track that, okay, all right, just curious. All right, so. Making sure we're still a safe town, we haven't, had any loss in humans here, and that we're still in good shape, and that's what I'm hearing, we're in good shape. Okay, awesome. I'll end it there. Cool. I've taken up time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Madam Manager, I think this was a well-written biannual financial summary report.
You noticed.
And I guess just to reiterate something I had talked to you about earlier, just, when it comes to what we collect in revenues, it can fluctuate because it's, a lot of it's based on people's income, and even with the real estate transfer tax, that's always a evolving number there as well, depending on what, gets sold in such in township, so
Absolutely.
well-written report, so thank you.
Thank you. And so, yes, to your point, Chair, we can provide projections, anticipated revenue when we're preparing a budget. We do appreciate the opportunity to be a little conservative, right? We'd rather underestimate and see more revenue come in. But when putting those projections together, we're anticipating those revenues. It's based on historical trends, but at the end of the day, we really can't, anticipate if somebody's having a career change that's impacting their salary, which would impact our earned income taxes, and/or we can't necessarily anticipate that there's going to be a commercial real estate transaction that could significantly increase our revenue or decrease. And so, yes, to your point, they are generated through estimates based on historical trends. And the board can expect a presentation, a brief presentation covering the written review that was submitted in the manager's report at the next August 5th Board of Supervisors regular meeting.
Mr. Heller?
And again, I agree with, the the biannual financial summary. And again, I think one of the requests that I would have is to see kind of those projections through the end of the year in any tables, et cetera, that we get, just to see and get a sense as to what we're feeling, even though we understand those are projections, to at least have them anytime that we do these things.
We only do them once a year at the end of the year when we're preparing the budget. So we do not necessarily, I'll monitor, and of course our finance director monitors daily, but I'll monitor on a quarterly basis, maybe even monthly, depending on where, kind of where the trends are in that year-to-date status. But we do not generate reports with anticipation of revenue. We do that when we're preparing the budget, and so it's in the budget, and then we do even end of year, because we're still collecting revenue right up until December 31st, and technically until the next year, until we close the books and DCD comes in and we submit our reports. All of those numbers can change. So what you can actually, in terms of reviewing actuals, it's in the future development. So you're going to see actuals for 2024, right? When you get the budget this year, but you get the estimates of what we anticipate our revenue projections to be at the end of 2025 in the budget that we'll present in October.
Okay, and that's the part that I'd be looking for, is that projection through the end of the year. when
In
we're gonna
October,
do-
yeah. And so we would present that to the board in October.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Strickland?
Just one, that was going to be my only comment too, is thanks so much for including that. We'll look forward to the presentation on it. I think it was so helpful to have this in here, and of course, we all understand that it fluctuates throughout the year, when you're going to get all of these expected revenues in. And that would be my only request, is to just maybe have some of the budget, what we had budgeted our expectations to be with regard to revenue in these different categories. We understand, that it's not going to be fulfilled at, July, October, but just to see versus, the real estate tax bill, what did we budgeted for 2025, our expectation there. So that would be the only thing.
Yeah, I certainly will take that note, and we can certainly give that some consideration. In presenting this here, you have that captured in some degree, in terms of if we're up or down, but the actual anticipation, right? So that's what we are presenting on, but we didn't necessarily bring it in. We could pull up the budget and certainly show what we budgeted, but that would be for the full year and not necessarily where we are. There's been no anticipation as to what we would collect up to this point in time. But I will talk with the finance director and we'll give some consideration as to how we can make that work.
Anyone else? If not, we have no unfinished business this evening, so with our new business, with the new business, we have the consent agenda, which has got the acceptance of the treasurer's report, the SPRA Kids Triathlon, the Pregnancy Resource Clinic 5K, the PML Legislative Liaison, and some pay applications for curb and ramp upgrades, guide rails, Pine Grove Mills Bike and Pedestrian Improvement Pay Estimate, and a College and Bristol Cabinet Award Memo. If there's no items that anyone wants to pull, accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
This is Patty, so moved.
And do we have a second?
This is Lisa, I'll second.
Got a motion by Ms. Stevens, second by Ms. Strickland. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. All right. We will then skip over to item 7. 7, the final land development plan for the PSU Start Lab at 3127 Research Drive. And the Director of Planning and Zoning is recognized.
Thank you, Chair. The final land development plan for the PSU Start Lab, 3127 Research Drive. The final plan was approved by, actually, the preliminary plan was approved by the Board of Supervisors on March 18th. And on June 23rd, the Planning Commission voted to recommend approval of the final land development plan for the Start Lab. It included conditions, most of them are administrative, and all items have been met. All reviewers have reviewed all of the items. So at this point, considered fairly straightforward. There were some questions regarding the noise. If that is something that needs to be answered, I'm happy to do so. There's also a number of people, I believe, in the audience and online that are ready to answer detailed questions.
All right. I was going to say, I don't know if we wanted.
No, motion.
Okay. I was going to say, it looks like we do have a gentleman that
I
was.
just stepped up a big.
Oh, just for question.
I'm the physical plant project manager, so if you have any questions, and I have others attending as well. So.
Okay. I was gonna say, I do understand we may even have some public comment here, so I was gonna say, kind of like we would for a public hearing, I'm gonna take some public comment and then, we can go into any board discussion, seeing that there was no questions as of right now. So anyone in the room wanted to speak to the board publicly on this matter? Seeing none in the room, anyone online? All right. I was going to say, if the board had no further questions, I would entertain a motion.
Before I do that, let me just lay of the land here. This is Madam Manager, this is a post-final planned residential, final land development plan. And so we already approved the preliminary with conditions. This is a matter of, they've come back, they've met all the conditions, and so now, can we disapprove the final?
If there were conditions not met, but at this point in time, the conditions have been met.
Right, so legally, if the conditions are met, this is a done deal, is that accurate?
Yes,
Okay.
to my knowledge, and I'll look at the planning and zoning director, my interpretation of our code and MPC is that we would not be in a good standing if we denied it, as long as they've met the conditions, because we've already approved the preliminary with conditions, and those conditions have been met.
Yeah.
So our code explains this is the next process.
There's a few follow-up items that they cannot meet until it's approved, such as related to the signatures.
Administrative.
The administrative, the
Recording of
digital,
deed, right.
Exactly.
Which
That's
is
a catch-22.
consistent with, right.
They haven't met it because I didn't approve, and so if I don't approve, they haven't met it. We.
That's
Okay.
just the order of the.
But, got it, okay, thank you. Very good. I don't have any more questions, so I'm happy to make a motion if anybody's. All right, Mr. Chair, I move adopt the ordinance as, I move to approve the final land development plan for PSU Start Lab.
And do we have a second?
This is Patty, I'll second.
Got a motion by Mr. Patterson, second by Ms. Stevens. Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Heller.
My topics aren't related to the land development plan, but more so understanding the noise ordinances related to the complaints and concerns that we've heard from citizens. So I'm just curious if maybe we can have a little bit of a conversation about when folks are allowed to, what noises are permissible, how that's measured, and during what times of day, so that folks know general frameworks as to when they should expect noise and when it's quiet hours, and who to call at that point. I'd like to bring that out publicly so folks understand that.
That's a great question, and so our noise ordinance indicates that anything exceeding 60 decibels would be considered a violation of the noise ordinance. The board has already issued preliminary approval, and that was with Penn State bringing forth their acknowledgement that they hired a noise consultant to ensure that the noise mitigation would be integrated into the construction of the plan. And I'm sure they can speak a little bit more about that, but they've integrated in these noise, I'll refer to them as like noise mitigation factors, and I'll look to the consultant if you want to hear more about that. But that was also presented to the board, and so those conditions were approved. And in terms of noise, like in a scenario, I guess, where if you're speaking where there was a failure to maybe one of those noise mitigation factors that are constructed with the START lab, then certainly it would be a call to the township. And we would be able to, well, I would actually suggest that it be a call directly to Penn State to give them an opportunity to respond. Perhaps it's just a failure and they're in the process of repairing it, like any other type of situation that could happen, residential, commercial, IRD. Just to learn, is this something that you can anticipate as a long-term issue, or is this something that is in the mix of being corrected? And then, of course, if it's something that is just a new norm, you would bring that forward to the township, and we would be able to work through what's been presented and incorporate it as a sound buffer, and identifying where those failures might be taking place. So I'm not speaking about the details because I don't have all of those details in front of me, but I'm sure our planning and zoning director, as well as the consultant, can talk a little bit about what those noise mitigation efforts have been in terms of being integrated into the construction.
Yeah, correct, thank you. I'm
Thank
with
you.
Penn State Physical Plant. I do have the consultant in the room, but I don't have our noise consultant here. Our acoustic consultant, I guess that's the proper term. But I believe your noise ordinance also has hours of operation.
Thank you.
And we're meeting those hours of operation also. So it's daylight hours, 7 to 7, is that correct?
That is correct.
So there would be no operation outside of that time frame. But the advantage we had with the addition is that we were building a new building. So rather than taking a structure and trying to adapt it, we started from ground one. When the consultant was working through the building, Penn State hired a third-party acquisition to be part of that design process, so that the building envelope actually has noise retaining structure rather than just a metal building that echoes. So we started with that part of it, and then that acoustic consultant is also working with the START team as they purchase their equipment, so that its decibel ratings are within what their model shows would be an acceptable noise level at the end to meet the ordinance. So that was all part of the overall design. We're still actually working through that because they're still purchasing equipment that'll go in there over the next year and a half. But that was our ultimate goal. We started with today's baseline. We had to study the whole site today and said that's what we want to stay at in the future. So that we worked with some of the existing equipment that's going to have new stuff added in as well.
Great. Thank you, and thank you for highlighting the time that I failed to mention in my report.
So if I may, 60 decibels at what distance from the building?
It's the property line, I believe is the way the ordinance reads.
And we do encourage residents to, always reach out directly, just so you can have that direct, conversation. But of course, reaching out to the township, and if you reach out to the administration, that's what we would do. We would reach out first to say, hey, what's going on? They might say, hey, there's been a failure with the HVAC. There could be something, and we would be able to further investigate. Of course, you can always call, our non-emergency number and report the issue, and then it's got a different type of a response to it. So we do encourage that neighborly interaction. And so those are the two options officially, but we certainly would suggest starting with calling Penn State directly.
I think the other thing I wanted to highlight too is that the current property was set under previous ordinance. So with the land development, we also looked at all the buffer yard requirements. And I don't remember the number, but it's 140-ish, 140 some additional trees are being planted along all three sides of the facility as buffer facilities as well to help with that same process.
Oh, can you please go
Step forward there.
I'm Ben McGann, we're the consulting engineers that
put together the facility for Penn State. So we work with the acoustical consultant. They have a baseline model, and then we provide the input. Start lab provides the input for their equipment, and they analyze different materials and substances like within the facility. So we went above and beyond in this facility to add additional insulation. We have solid core block walls in certain locations. All the equipment, noise making equipment is on kind of this side, which is kind of the commercial side of the property. So it's, the line of sight sound is mitigated. So they take all that into account, and look at the ordinance and what they perceive that would be generated from the facility at the property line. To not make it any louder than it is now, which it currently complies with the ordinance. So.
Since I came on, I might as well speak too. So I'm Craig Dubler, Director of Facilities for the College of Engineering. So to Centrice's point, I do take calls. I do anticipate that people contact the College of Engineering. I manage the operation of the facility. So if there is times that we are outside that ordinance, and maybe we have a fan that's going on because we do have concrete facilities within it. So we've had an exhaust fan that's on later at night. We'll go turn it off. It may not even be the start noise that is causing some issues. And we've actually mitigated a lot of the exhaust fans and sounds that is directed towards the township already, or I'm sorry, the community, the surrounding residents, because we honestly care too. I wouldn't want that directed towards my home either. So we've directed a lot of exhaust fans in different directions too that don't have anything to do with start, but we've gone above and beyond in those areas. So if you do have an issue, please reach out to the College of Engineering, and we'll make sure the operations is happening, and then we'll look at other mitigation options.
It would be helpful if that number was published in the newsletter, because when they say call Penn State, that's not even counting million phone numbers.
No worries. That's why I stepped up. So I'll make sure that my number is available, my email. So I will be able to.
And we hope we never have to call.
Yep, me too.
Thanks, Greg.
Definitely.
And if you want, you can shoot me an email with the contact information that we can share publicly with the residents. Thank you.
We thank you for your respect for our community.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was just remembering the Board of Supervisors was invited for a tour over here of the facility, and there had been a lot of mitigation measures just put in place when we were there, but it also sounds like this land development plan is even stepping it up further, and I appreciate that. Yes, Mr. Heller.
It might be a good neighborly gesture if Penn State were to open up the facility before anything's populated in it, just to show it off to the community and all of the sound and deadening things that are happening there. Again, just an idea, but I think some folks would probably appreciate a little bit of an open house, because this is, the community, town and gown. Penn State's right there, and it gives also a perspective as to the good work that's being done at the university as well, which goes a long way.
Appreciate that. I'll take that back to the CERT team and have them look into that coordinating.
Thank you. No further questions?
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, that's a good question. Of course, I do know they have a lot of security things that they gotta work through, but, whatever, is available to take a look at would be greatly appreciated, yep. Anyone else?
My one small note, during that particular tour, I actually walked down the path just to kind of see if I can hear the noise from the fan that was going off at the time that we were taking the tour. And I said, no, this isn't terrible to me. And I understand that living there, it could be a problem if you're hearing it day in, day out. I don't know, you work night shifts, so you're there during the day, hear it, it's this kind of certain decibel, it's just annoying, I get it. But I did talk to a couple of the neighbors, and they were like, I never hear that thing. And then there's ones like, I kind of hear it, but it doesn't bother me. So I think there's just a wide variety of folks, and I think to the point that's already been stated, is that folks need to have a conversation and kind of work through it. But I've seen some goodness. I appreciate the team working together and finding solutions around the placement of the facility, all that good stuff. That's why the preliminary plan was approved. And so we should advance this one as well. Over.
Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Strickland.
I just want to say thanks for the resident input. It's always
Yes.
so incredibly helpful when residents come at these early, not this, but the earlier
Yes.
stages of a development
Yes.
plan and express their concerns, and that gives the board, staff, and the developers time to work on corrections, you know, to mitigate any potential problems, and it's just so helpful, and as you can see, you know, there's, you know, some constructive, productive things that have come from these healthy, you know, really nice interactions from both sides. I just really appreciate all of that.
Did you have anything, Patty?
No, just thank you for the dialogue between
Yeah.
Penn State and community and staff and everything. It's great. It's the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that feedback, and I was gonna say, Kim, if I'm correct, even the planning commission had public comment, which I'm always ecstatic when there's public comment in planning commission, because you're like really getting out there at the very first stages of the plan when it comes to a public meeting, and definitely appreciate that, which that does tend to build a lot of valuable feedback, that sometimes when that applicant comes back with another revision of the plan, all of a sudden like, oh, they've taken public comment into consideration, and even planning commission comment into consideration. So it does really help to, you know, bring some continuity and, you know, meet that, you know, partnership between town and gown. So, yeah. All right. You have anything? Okay. If not, I was going to say our time on this item has expired, so I will call this for a vote. All those in favor say aye, or, this is voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Okay. Well, passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then next up, we have the post-final planned residential development plan for the cottages at State College, now known as the Yards at Old State, located at 1830 Blue Course Drive. And the Director of Planning and Zoning is recognized.
Thank you. As you stated, this is a post-final residential development plan. This is for a pickleball court, 24 feet by 58 feet, and a proposed dog park. This is in the, again, it's the area that was previously known as the Yards, or now known as the Yards at Old State. I believe we have someone online as well from Pantera that can answer any questions. There was no discussion at the Planning Commission, and it was recommended for approval.
Yes, Mr. Patterson.
Would you entertain a motion, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Excellent. I move to approve the post-final plan residential development plan for the cottages at State College, now known as the Yards at Old State.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion by Mr. Patterson, second by Mr. Heller. Any discussion or questions? Not seeing any. I was going to say, since these plans did have a lot of public participation this evening, was there any public in the room or online that wanted to address the board on this? Okay, seeing none, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. Okay, passes. All right, that will then move it, we'll go back to then item,
Two in the agenda.
yes, 7.2. Okay. I thought I would have something different, but 7.2, we have a public hearing on a resolution of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania, supporting the Pennsylvania Commission for the United States Semi-Centennial. But we will call this America 250 PA. And with that, I will recognize the Township Manager.
Thank you, Chair. Provided with the agenda is a narrative as well as, I believe, a memo that provides great detail about, essentially, we can call it America 250 PA and or the birthday celebration, the big birthday celebration. And so I'll actually yield the floor to Lucas. And I'm not,
It's
Blessing.
Lucas Hayek of,
Hi, thank you. And so he's here representing to talk a little bit more about this initiative.
Hey guys, thank you for having me on this nice Tuesday evening. Yes, so the America 250 PA Center County Initiative is part of a national celebration of the Declaration of Independence for July 4th, 2026. Pennsylvania has an effort in each county. All 50 states are collaborating with the National America 250 PA semi-quincentennial efforts. We are reaching out to every municipality in Center County to sign this proclamation, acknowledging the America 250 PA Center County Initiative and allowing them to collaborate with our stakeholder committees in promoting their community events. In the platform that was passed out around to you guys that details, kind of what the theme of our initiative is, as well as a list of stakeholders, there's a list of townships who have currently signed the proclamation at the time of this meeting. Events do not have to be only for the 4th of July. For instance, we are in talks with the State College Borough to collaborate them and Penn State for Pennsylvania Dignity Day. We are also working with the Center County Grange Fair to have an America 250 PA themed parade float. More than 20 Center County boroughs and townships have already joined us in signing the proclamation, and I just want to emphasize that this is a volunteer opportunity. I am an intern at the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau. We are providing in-kind support and will work to promote your events through our website, which we have. It's centercounty.america250pa.org, and we will communicate information to the representatives at America 250 PA. Some of the stakeholders on our committee include CBICC, Center County Historical Society, the Daughters of the American Revolution, the Sons of the American Revolution, Eagle Iron Works at Curtin Village, the Military Officers Association of America, and more than 20 other active organizations. We meet on a monthly basis or as needed. America 250 PA Center County is not requesting any funding or effort from you at this time. Your involvement and information to be communicated to America 250 PA is at your discretion and to the extent of your resources.
All right, any questions?
I do have a question, actually. So, a couple years ago, I actually signed up for a virtual race for America 250. And it's either, your options were either walk or bike. And I think like the first target was 250 miles, 500, 750, and 1,000. Why hasn't that been promoted? Because a virtual thing would be a great way for like a township or something to get involved.
I will forward that request to my boss and we'll be in contact with the America 250 PA personnel at the state level.
Okay, great.
And I can email you, I got in communications with you guys through your official email. I can communicate that information to you before the week's over.
Yeah, because that's like an easy link or something that we could get township residents to participate in. Maybe even add swimming.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say, if I can go back a little bit, this would be a public hearing, so at this time I do want to open up the floor to any public that may be in the room or online that wanted to address the board on this item. If there is none, I would close the public hearing and we can resume any questions or other feedback that the board has. Mr. Heller.
Mr. Chair, will you take a motion so I can say semi-quincentennial?
You may.
Took me a while to figure it out, admittedly. So I move that the Board of Supervisors adopt a resolution to endorse the Pennsylvania Commission for the United States Semi-Quincentennial America 250 PA and authorizing Ferguson Township's participation in related programs, events, and funding opportunities.
This is Patty, a second.
Okay, got a motion by Mr. Heller, seconded by Ms. Stevens. Any further discussion?
Yeah, you mentioned the Daughters of the American Revolution. What did you mention that for? That they've volunteered for as part of this?
Yes, the Daughters of the American Revolution. The Bellefonte chapter has been very active in our committee. So they volunteer. What we're aiming to do is to bring all the stakeholders together at events that we are planning. We're developing all together so that we have appearances from representatives of the Daughters of the American Revolution in authentic costumes. Mm-hmm. That's just one of the examples.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I was going to say, DAR does enjoy the regalia and coming out for public appearances, so.
other things too, but we're not gonna talk about that.
Maybe historically, but I'm all in on America 250. Let's Ferguson participate.
Yeah. I'd also point out it's interesting that the 250th birthday of America will also coincide in the same year of the 225th anniversary of the township being incorporated. So it will be interesting to kind of share those two milestones in the next year. So
That's a lot of candles for Alpha Fire Company.
On our website, we do have a page that has a list of milestones, so I can go in there tomorrow and update it to say Ferguson Township, 225 years in 2026. We're doing that for businesses, municipalities. I believe one of the caves is also celebrating an anniversary. I think it's Woodward Cave, if I'm not mistaken. So we are trying to make this as big of a promotional experience for every part of Center County.
nice.
And that would be the Quasqui bicentennial, the 225, for anybody that was really curious. We had that discussion.
You take note of that you take note of that, Madam Manager, and whatever activities we plan for next year resolutions must then include that. And Matt will have to say it every time.
Oh, no. We're not going to share that love. Here we go.
I still had 3 minutes. But yeah, if there's no further discussion on this, I would recognize the manager to call the roll on the resolution.
Thank you, Chair. This is Resolution 2025-17. Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Patterson?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Ms. Strickland?
Yes.
Resolution passes unanimously.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Thank you.
All right, item 7.3, the review and discussion of the draft 2026 Center Region Council of Governments Strategic Guide to Services and Investments Plan. And I will recognize the Township Manager.
Thank you, Chair. Provided with the agenda is a narrative, a detailed narrative that provides a high-level overview. And with us this evening, we have the Center Region Council of Governments Executive Director Ben Estelle, and we also have the Center Region Council of Governments Finance Director Kimberly with us this evening. And I yield to both of them to take us down this journey.
Thank you so much. It's nice to see you all again. We are fairly proficient at this process right now, so I'm going to run through some very quick comments. This is supposed to be your discussion on comments that you wish to make on it. However, there are a couple items that I want to run through ahead of time. First, this is the replacement document for the former CIP and program plan. This is an attempt to make it a more efficient and useful document, one document that has everything that you might want to see in it. We have worked to provide better information within the document than you have seen in the past, so more data, more charts to help you understand kind of the efficiencies of different organizations and programs. And we're going to state outright, those are not all there yet. One of the things we have worked on this year is to ask all of the various committees to discuss any key metrics that they would like to see us tracking for the future. And so we note some of those. However, because that data was not being tracked in the past, we don't have data to show just yet. In future years, you will start to see more and more of that kind of information in here as well. From our conversations last year with General Forum in the budget process, we knew that parks was of particular interest. And while we aren't down to the program level yet, you will see that there is a lot more parks data already in here, and we are getting down to that program level data so that you can make decisions on a case-by-case basis using solid information moving forward. This document is designed to mimic one of your code books, so using budget codes instead. So if you know the budget code for anything, so CRPA is C45, their section is all numbered C45-1, -2, -3, -4. So if there are any additions or changes to this document, we can simply substitute a page in that section. It does not affect the numbering of the document in its entirety. It also makes it a little bit easier when we get to the actual budget process that we can all go section by section through that budget and look at any of the proposals and any of the background information that we have provided to you on that proposal. The last thing I want to hit here is on the comment intent. So at the suggestion of Mr. Heller, we created a municipal comment operating guideline this year. So you were all provided with this comment guideline to help in tonight's process. And I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I do want to reiterate the intent of the municipal comment process. Municipal comments are intended to reflect a unified position or shared perspective of the governing body on city proposals. These comments are not votes or formal approvals, but valuable feedback that helps shape program direction and resource prioritization. You aren't approving anything tonight, you're not necessarily denying anything tonight. You're providing feedback to the COG so that we can improve things moving into that budget process. If there are additional things that you want to see, we will do our best to gather that before we get into that budget process. There's no expectation that every item in here is getting approved in the budget process. That's completely unrealistic. However, every item in here has gone through the committee process. Whether one of the direct committees, through the Parks and Rec Authority, through the SLO Library Board, everything in here has gone through the committee process before reaching into this book. It is worth having a conversation for future years, asking our committees to do a bit more in that committee process so that we don't end up with, I believe it's 52 proposals overall by the time we get to this stage. That is a lot, but I think we would all be better served if those committees started to take a little more action and say, yes, this is important, but we want to prioritize these items right now to move into this final process. Do want to commend you for having the COG committee reports at the early part of your agenda and getting that information out there. One of the things we have been encouraging is to make sure that your committee members are reporting out. We have certainly had a lot of questions that indicate that not everybody is getting full reporting from everything, and that is incredibly important to our functionality, that you all stay informed through each other. The committee process does not work if you are not reporting back to your members. So we want to thank you for that. And at this time, I'm happy to take, I forgot the most important thing here. When you make comments, you will receive responses from my staff. There will not be anything that says noted when you get this back. Every comment that is issued will have a response. You will not always like the response. Sometimes we can't do the thing that you want us to do, but we will explain why. Sometimes it is a matter of saying, we understand the concern here, this is what we're doing to mitigate your concern. However, this is the only real path that we have to move forward on this. But you will get an actual response from an agency director on your comment. I'm happy to answer any questions that I may. I don't know every proposal in 100% detail, but I'm well versed on all of the COGS activities.
I was going to say, any overview questions? Yes, Mr. Howell.
No, I'm saying I've had my input with finance and everything else, seeing this in advance, so I'm just looking forward to the discussion tonight and seeing what comes out.
Yeah, I do want to give time for discussion. I noticed ahead of this meeting, we only gave this item 10 minutes, and I don't anticipate us going through all our comments in 2 minutes, but that would actually give us the record for fastest and most constructive, I'm sure.
You're already past the fastest.
Yeah, we'll give this one some time. I can go through each thing within the municipal feedback and review, or we can even just do it as a group and kind of go around the table. Yeah, Ms. Strickland?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think just going through them.
Okay.
Yep. Easiest.
Each section. All right. So, yeah, under Parks and Recreation, there was the $5,000 in additional funding be approved on top of the 2025 budget request for training for specialized staff training in areas such as natural resource management, certified playground safety inspections, and other targeted topics that support professional development and succession planning. I was gonna say if nobody responds, I guess no comments. Yes, Ms. Strickland.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask why that wasn't, if there is, training funding in the, in some other section.
This is above the typical training funding because we have switched to bringing on a natural resource specialist in Parks and Recreation, and we are expanding the number of playground inspectors that we have. This would be an increase to that training budget. Again, certainly probably an item that in future years, somebody might say, this does not need to be included in this full document for something that small.
Yeah, I guess that would be my comment. I mean, if we're hiring somebody new as a playground inspector and they have to get certified.
So this is training existing employees in a separate certification.
Yeah, well, yes. No, I misstated that.
Very
So-
careful on, we're not hiring an additional person into parks.
Yes, good point, yeah. No, if we're getting an existing employee to be certified as a playground inspector, yeah, one comment I would suggest would be to roll that in. I mean, I think, if we hire somebody to be a, whatever it was called, a natural resource specialist, I guess I would expect them to have what they need coming on board, but maybe there's something specific. I don't know.
There are typically separate specializations and things. If you hire an HR person, there are separate certifications that HR person could have. They might be SHRM certified, but you want them to, I'm struggling with the name of the other one.
HRCI.
HRCI. You may have wanted this other certification. They are technically a certified person, but your organization prefers this certification. So they might have had a certification from ODNR, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, and you want them to get the certification in Pennsylvania.
Gotcha.
So there are always these cross certifications that we have to look at, and yes, the person is educated, but we may need them to get something specific to us.
Yeah, I think my comment would just be to include things like this in the general number, because we don't need to be going into this kind of detail on this thing, so.
Yeah.
I mean, if they need it, they need it, so.
Right. Makes sense. Any other comments on this one? Okay. Yes,
Just
Mr.
a big thank you. I think for quite some time, there's been a request for more data to understand, like, where are these dollars going toward? And your strategic bullet point about we're gonna kind of evaluate which programs, who's using these programs, and that'll help. So I'll give you whatever you want, given me personally, which might be nothing. To do what you have to do to kind of see if things are working or not. I think it's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we have 10,288 in funds to be approved for the implementation of computerized maintenance management software and tablets to modernize operations for the maintenance division responsible for Center Region Parks. I was gonna say if there is no feedback, I'll just keep moving on. 8,790 in funding to be approved for the agency to transition from RecDec to Vermont Systems Rec Track to better accommodate the organization's scale and operation needs.
Save your voice and just. Anybody have anything from this section?
Yep.
I'm just saying.
I was gonna say, yeah, I could do that too. So yeah, that in the next three under Parks and Recreation operating budget C20.
On those last two, the
concession and the
or no, sorry, I'm back. Software management and
RecDec or the Vermont
Rec Track. Yeah, if both of those will help with, like Mario just said, more detail on where work is being focused, on dividing it up by municipality, by park, however, we're eager for that kind of data to understand.
You can say parks management works by hand currently. There is no system for tracking parks maintenance. This is to get them computerized for tracking.
And that's exciting to see that those will be on board.
Right. And my understanding from the Parks Director, my understanding with transitioning away from Rec Desk, they are taking into consideration what we have been asking, and tapping into a system that provides those analytics.
Yeah. The reporting system is why Vermont Systems was the one that they are focusing on. They are still exploring that in more detail, but because we need to get through our process before you all get to your process, we have to push everything out pretty early on things. But they are still going through that exploration, but it specifically has much better reporting components than what our current software does.
Anything else? There was those last two items on the concession building and a sponsorship model to support the parks.
The concession building, sorry.
Funding be approved to support the operational launch of a new concession building scheduled to open 2026 at Whitehall Regional Park.
Sorry, okay, I'm not on that sheet that you're on, but, anyway, I guess, is this the equipment?
This is not the equipment.
Yeah.
That comes later. This is the operational, so this is the staffing.
Staffing, food and beverage inventory, day-to-day operational supplies.
Okay, I guess I'll hold my comments till later about the equipment that goes in there.
Okay.
I mean, well, I might as well just say it now. I mean, my understanding was when we approved that, sorry, I don't mean to exclude you from this.
That's okay.
But my understanding was that when we approved that pavilion, that the whole reason behind the pavilion was that there were no trees out there, that it's such a new park, and that that money that we couldn't just leave sitting there to build this pavilion was strictly as a shade thing. It wasn't about, because we knew we didn't have the money, that it wasn't about making it a concession stand and doing that. It was strictly, I mean, at least as I recall the conversation it was about shade because the trees won't be mature yet.
Right.
Yes, I agree. That was a selling point, but it was a concession stand.
It was, but more for shade as opposed to, because there was concern about that this would happen, right? The sort of thing we were talking about, that if it's built, well, we've got to staff it, and we've got to, that sort of thing. So that was mine.
The majority of the facility would be shaded area in seating, whether there's a picnic table portion that's put in here. There's the equipment for the this is approximately $10,000 overall, which again comes later on. This question has come up pretty much in every municipality, so if you're just go ahead and get it out of the way. This is not a commercial kitchen. There's no hood. There's no cooking happening here. This is microwaves, freezers, to refrigerators to hold food, and then there's a grill on the outside of it. The majority of the space is just under a roof. It's not the four-season original plan that was stripped down to a three-season pavilion, so it's not walled in. It is a shaded area for seating on that side of things. And current concessions, based on our other operations, bring in a 15.4% profit.
15% of what?
That's the profit margin.
Meaning we spend $100, we bring in 115.
Yes.
So we're making money on all concessions across all.
Yes.
Okay.
The national, I'm going to forget the proper name of the organization, the National Parks, Park and Recreation Professionals estimates that you should bring in between 10 and 20% on concessions as your profit margin. We are sitting at 15.4%.
Okay. I think we can bring in 50.
Good grief, how much are you gonna charge for a hot dog?
Yeah, but 15% of what? And now I'm back to like, we buy $100 worth of hot dogs and we sell $115 worth of hot dogs? Does that include the staff time to sell the hot dog?
That includes the staff time to sell the hot dogs.
Okay, and so this funding that Patty's like, hey, I don't like this, you're saying that we spend this upfront money, every year when we spend this money on staff we will pay for that person from the hot dog sales and 15% extra go to the coffers.
Yeah. The only thing I'm not positive on is how much of the true overhead is included in that profit margin. So the investment in the equipment itself, which comes later on. But at 15.4% profit margin on the total operations, we would still be paying off that equipment fairly quickly.
Copy, and the 15% is Welch, Pool, it's
Oak Hall.
It's, okay, all the concessions that we currently run, there's somebody staff there. We're paying for those people plus 15%.
Yes.
And so you're gonna double check on how much of the overhead of those people is also included, or if it's just simply the salary, is that accurate?
The total operational cost versus our hard cost for the facility.
Are we getting back our return on the equipment used to sell the hot dog, the roller?
I mean, we are getting that money back. I just don't know if that is included in the 15.4%, if that's been annualized in that number. Because at 15.4%, we're definitely paying off that equipment. I just don't know if that is the case, how fast do we pay that off? Or are they actually saying, with this equipment, with the 5-year lifespan, we're including that in our projections?
Got it. So $10,000 worth of equipment over 5 years, initial $2,000. Are we recouping that in that annual selling of hot dogs and slushies and whatever else?
Exactly.
Okay.
Mr. Patterson, if
So,
I
sir,
may, related to that, maybe we just take a note that this is something to incorporate during budget discussion, is to have those numbers in a little bit deeper perspective on it.
Yeah.
I know
No, I
that
just want to make sure there's.
Jeff knows those numbers better than I do, but in answering these questions multiple times, that was part of the answer that I was able to get ahead of time for you. Jeff is on vacation right now, so I can't get that final piece.
I think just overall, I have an issue with concessions as part of this. And I get it, we're trying to come up with alternate revenue sources, but it's hard enough for parks to get people to run their programs, and yet now we're going to also do what I'll call mission creep into concessions and try to find people that will clean that and, once they're done selling that. Anyway, it's just overall in general, the concession piece of it is something that I have a hard time with,
I-
but that's just me.
I've been just as concerned with Patty about going into like, because we're not necessarily in the concession business, like what next? We're gonna open up a sporting goods store and sell baseball bats and, you know, all that stuff, you know, when our, you know, the core is park assets, you know, the core of that program, so.
If I could present the other side of that argument for you, you are going to have tournaments taking place out there. Those families are not going to have many opportunities to leave that facility throughout those tournaments. This is how they get something to eat, something to drink, stay hydrated at these tournaments. This is what we see at Test Field and Oak Hall, is that it is incredibly important that we keep some concessions going to make sure that people have something, that all the siblings that get dragged along with mom and dad also have something available to them while they're there, because these tournaments go all day, all weekend, and the families typically aren't leaving the site until that evening.
Thank you, and if you don't mind, Chair, I'll just acknowledge too, in addition to what Mr. Estelle stated, you know, as we move forward with our economic development plan and we consider what brings people into our community, recognizing that this will be a regional location that will host these tournaments, if we want this location to be viewed as a location to do the tournaments for what we build out these fields, which is responsive to several studies done decades ago, we probably want to consider how we provide that level of accommodation so we are selected and that site is utilized in that way. Not that I discount at all what you're indicating in terms of like it's similar to the food truck discussion we had a couple of years ago. So I can respect and completely understand that concern. It's like we're opening up this new area. But unlike the food truck, we've already built and invested so much in Whitehall Road Regional Park. So to kind of stall out this as an opportunity to improve or enhance economic development and be seen as a regional location to get people to come, all because we won't provide those snacks or hydration or these other items that become quite relevant when sport groups are considering where they want to hold their tournaments.
Good, Ms. Strickland there.
I guess I'm pleased then, because I agree with Patty a lot about the concerns. So I guess I'm pleased that it's smaller scale. So you're saying that the only actual cooking functions will be done on a grill?
And microwaves.
And microwaves, okay. So I guess that does keep it smaller. So not operating a full restaurant, which would be outside of what we're really trying to do here. And I would just say, you know, this is part of the issue when you create something that is targeted toward non-residents, really, is we spend a lot of money on these kinds of things. And that's, you know, I mentioned a couple meetings ago about it, actually 2 different meetings that I was at had brought up the cost of tourism and the cost of bringing visitors, and you're spending money on something for non-residents. So all that said, I think we do need a basic level of you know, concessions here. So I guess I'm kind of, we'll see when we get down to it. I guess the 7,000 makes sense because you're going to have to buy a lot of more prepared things because you're not cooking so much. The $10,000 for, I guess, refrigerators, freezers. So
That's a separate item.
yeah, it's just, but it does kind of blend together if we're talking about, you know, here's the supplies for whatever we're going to be doing down there. So I guess I'll just be relieved that it's smaller than it could have been. But yeah, I'll just say, you know, it's the cost of going that direction with a park. So
And that's one fact I can appreciate. It's not, you know, the fancy restaurant like Matt would say. You know, how would you describe it? It's the Ford version of a restaurant. So,
the Bentley versus
what you would get on a Cadillac.
yeah.
Any other on the C20 items? If not, the Parks Capital Equipment budget. I'm not gonna try to save my voice, but you know, there's a trailer on here, replacing a skid steer. You know, feel free to interrupt as soon as you have something two-post mobile vehicle equipment lift, and funding to replace another John Deere Gator with, well, actually, no, this is different. John Deere Gator with an electric utility vehicle.
We have multiple electric Gators in our fleet already. These are a proven item. That question has come up a number of times.
That's good to know.
So the C21, the skid steer with track skid loader, was there some discussion at finance about that?
Yes, with the images provided and everything, which prompted conversation here related to the skid steer. Yes, there was discussion about that.
Had this been on the previous CIP, the previous years?
Not that I believe, no.
Oh, so this was a new addition, okay. Was there talk of pushing it out a year, or since it
No.
was new? Okay.
Doesn't mean that there can't be, right?
Wow, they've kept that skid steer clean.
Yeah, you look inside.
Yeah, we've replaced seats on tractors before.
So with the skid steer, this is a combination issue of functionality and traction. This is a wheeled unit currently, and they are looking to move to a track unit because it is difficult to get anywhere where there's uneven or wet terrain. Unfortunately, we've had a lot more wet terrain this season than in the past. And the other item that they mentioned was this is a solid unit currently, so you do not have the ability to switch attachments on the current skid steer, which means they have to switch equipment out for different functions. They would like to move to a model that allows for the switching of the front equipment on the skid steer for better functionality overall. Current unit still works. Let's not. It needs maintenance on a regular basis, but it does still work. Those are the primary drivers for that.
I'm going to upset my John Deere friends, but this is why my uncle had a case instead of a John Deere. We've used it probably for 20 years now, and yeah, very nice, versatile. You can switch out equipment from a bucket loader, post hole digger, snowplow, you name it.
I got some work for it at my house.
And everyone wants to borrow your skid loader.
I mean, my suggestion for a comment would be to push it out a year. I said it during our CIP discussions, I just have concern when something large is added to an initial year and not kind of planned out, so that would be my suggestion.
And I could support that.
I can support that as well.
Any other C21 items?
If I may, the pushing out a year, doing it this year, Mr. Stell, is there any benefit to, like, added cost savings, ROI, that this year versus next? I'm just curious.
I believe this one, is one of Chrissy's comments. So I've been trying to collect some basic responses as we go from agency directors. So some items I have some response to. She did say, we will continue to monitor the unit's condition and can revisit the timing if deferral is preferred. So the current unit will still work. They expect to be able to get through another season with it. It's still functional, but it is aging increasingly inefficient. So it will see more downtime than a new one, but I don't have the figures on how much time it is spending in maintenance with me.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
Oh, and if there's any way to bring about those repair and replacement costs annually, that might steer some folks. If we're spending $15,000 a year on this thing, do we really want to spend another $15,000 in repairs, or just go ahead and bite the bullet and buy a new one? That's just a thought. Maybe there's no way it's $15K, but.
Did you just say steer things as we're talking about the skid steer?
Pun intended, sorry.
Okay, just making sure I picked up on it.
question, good points on that. Just to move us ahead, and feel free to chime in if you had more Parks Capital, but there is a a regional fire item in C30 of should we be approve funding for a new captain of field services position. Anyone had anything on that? If not, there was a regional fire protection program capital budget, C31, had the approval to purchase a duty officer vehicle and funding to approve and replace 2 rooftop HVAC units that are at the end of their useful life and require replacement at the borough station.
We'll note that the duty officer vehicle may be able to be deferred sometime if the code truck is approved further on. Code would take their current truck that is stored at your facility and transfer that over to Alpha to use as a duty officer vehicle for a few years to squeeze out the rest of its useful life.
I think Mr. Patterson had something, but yeah.
Well, on that note, just kind of the regional collaboration on things like that, like, hey, Ferguson's getting ready to buy a new vehicle, add it to the fleet, there's another fleet vehicle that's 6 years old, that's got plenty of years, kind of toss it on to another entity. Are we doing that, Madam Manager, are we doing that kind of working together across the COG with the municipalities to kind of ship vehicles around and get?
I can say for COGs, you're going to see a number of code vehicles coming up in here. The code inspection vehicles are typically at construction sites, so they get a little harder use out in the field during those years. Once they have reached a point where we don't, in the regular replacement plan where we don't want to continue to beat them up, they are brought up to kind of a base level condition for repairs, and then they are offered out to other COG agencies first. So the slow delivery vehicle for books is a code vehicle. Parks currently has 1 truck that is a former code truck. They've had several cars in the past that were code cars. If we do not have a code agency or a COG agency that can use them at that time, then we contact our municipalities and offer it out to them. If none of the municipalities can use it, or once it has been used by those groups, we then go to SCASD and we offer it to their automotive programs, and the students will work on our vehicles typically for about 2 more years, doing repairs and any kind of general automotive work. Once it has lived that life, then it goes out to the fire school, and they use it for rescue operations. Once it has been gone through the rescue operations, then they have a team that strips the vehicle of everything, and then it is used for burn programs out there. So we are typically getting somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 6 lives out of every one of these vehicles.
Out of the code vehicle, got it. I was just wondering if there's any more like regional, across municipality use of life. I think you gave an example. For
I mean, we offer
okay
those vehicles out to the municipalities if a COG agency cannot use them at that time.
Okay.
I think there's one going out, we'll put out to offer in a week or 2.
The just C30, C31, I'll work on the public safety committee to kind of talk through those a little bit more. I'm not I guess, huge fan of the overall plan, but we'll work through that at committee level as well.
Any other items under fire? Nothing under emergency management. Center Region Code Administration has a new construction budget, C40, with various items there. Again, I can just name off a couple things and feel free to stop me, if if you have any comments that come to mind. Replacing a Ford Escape with an Chevy Equinox. Replacing 2 Ford Escapes with Ford Hybrid Escapes. Purchase 3 electronic plan review tables along with associated software for use by commercial electrical plan examiners and field staff as needed. I think that is a position that we are talking about filling for next year.
We just had 1 retirement of the 3 electrical inspectors. That position is posted currently to fill the 3rd electrical inspector's position. These are our regular positions.
Well,
These are not additional.
Those the commercial, but I see, commercial electric plan examiners.
Yeah.
But just kind of looks like more resources and tools for them to do their jobs.
This is an effort to begin the process of moving away from paper-intensive plans and move more towards an electronic model. And on the first 2 items and the other vehicle items as well, please also recognize that it's or equivalent vehicle. We don't know what vehicles will be on state contracts, which ones will be available. We are not locked into any particular vehicle. Walt is simply providing you with the current best offer for those.
Walt did a really good explanation of all this code stuff. I forget which committee it was, but the 4 lives of the vehicles and kind of the way he was. I think there were some new positions, or there were some positions that were retiring, and then he was backfilling while also making sure to spread the knowledge across the team. There were a couple people that knew everything, and so there was some goodness there within codes, I think, to keep that thing running well, and also cross-training the team.
Exactly. So, there are 2 positions being proposed here. One is an unfilled inspector's position, just because of the volume of construction that we have going on at the moment. Walt would like to bring that, refill that vacant spot. And the other is for Kathy, who handles an exceptional amount of work for us. She's given us notice that in a year's time she is going to be retiring. Walt would like to bring somebody on because we have kind of 4 cycles through the year in codes of the different types of work that they do, from rental inspections, the new construction, existing structures, etc. And so in order to get somebody to spend time through the full cycle of what happens in that group, we would like to bring them on here early. Once that retirement happens, that position would go back to being unfilled. The whiteboards would work the same way as the vehicles. The existing whiteboards would move up to admin and planning, and code would get the new boards in their offices.
I like that item of the new construction program fund partnerships with SCLO and SCASD to expand access to building code information and training and help address growing shortage of educated code officials and properly trained contractors. There's a lot of potential with that.
We currently provide the physical code books at SCLO. What we would like to do is move to the digital model, provide basically a laptop or a desktop computer at SCLO and load the digital copy. We would pay for the license for that, and then also provide a copy to the SCASD library in case we are able to encourage some students to move into the field of construction and inspection, but also to provide that resource to our residents, that if they want to research the code that they would need to meet for their homes, that is available to them for free at the library.
other comments on C40 items? If not, there is the Center Region Code Administration Existing Structures budget with 5 items there. Looks like replacing more vehicles.
So that third item is the one I mentioned earlier, the 450 or 550. This really depends on what the pricing structures are for those different trucks at the time. Multiple times in my manager's career, 550s have ended up being cheaper than the 450s, based on government incentives. So it's whichever one of those comes in at a lower cost we would go with for that. And then the 350 would move to the office.
And I like kind of where the fire director's going with some of these requests, especially transitioning some things to trailers, because it does kind of make a little bit more easier to send maybe just a truck or a trailer when appropriate, instead of a full fire apparatus. And it even opens up the opportunity of people that are able to operate the vehicle, because right now only certain individuals could operate an entire fire truck, even if, and that's in some cases only what you have available right now. If it's just as simple as going to a house to, air it out after, food got burned or something. Anyone on those items? I jumped ahead of myself here, but Center Region Planning Agency operating budget. I think we're all pretty supportive of the AmeriCorps position, subject to continuation of applicable funding.
I can say the intern position is a far more likely option. The AmeriCorps position would not be a federally funded position. So we're talking with the state group that administers our region. They're looking for partners, but we have not received the promises needed yet that we can show that we're going to be able to do this for an entire year.
CCMPO, I was going to say, Ms. Strickland, I don't necessarily want to put you on the spot, but you are our CCMPO. I'm sure you're pretty well versed in these items. If there was anything you wanted to bring up.
Sure, I just wanted to touch on the senior planner.
Oh, yeah, that's in the, CRPA C45.
I'm in agreement with taking this out. And I noticed in the notes that there'll be a consultant for local planning for the rest of this year. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah, and that extends into next year as well.
That's what was going to be my question. Okay,
Yes.
so local planning will be done by consultant next year?
Exactly. So local planning, we'll have a separate conversation with our local planning communities to see if they want to continue into that or not. We are putting the numbers together right now. We just got the CPI number that determines, wage increases, and also, kind of what our budget parameters are for next year. That was just released this morning. The consultant submissions, I believe, are due tomorrow. Tomorrow or Thursday, although I can't remember off the top of my head. So we will have those numbers. We will meet with both Patton and Harris at that time and explain these would be our costs. If it's internal with our existing staff, this would be the cost with a consultant coming through COG. We wouldn't look for any, COG would not need to make money off of using the consultant's contract for their individual work. Or a third option, what would it look like? Can they use up enough of a planner that it is worth bringing another planner on? Right now, they use about 65% of a planner. That would leave 35% of a planner that we could apply to sustainability efforts. Pam and I have been going through these numbers for the last several days, and now that we have the CPI, we can drill down much more specifically. Right now, overall, considering that fund balance was used considerably in this budget and many others, we are only looking at, I think, probably in the neighborhood of like a 3% increase overall. That is making up the difference for all the fund balance that was used as well. So the cuts that we made have been significant, and so there are some options that we're going through, but finding out from our local planning communities what they want. They might choose to go off on their own, and then we don't discuss local planning again.
It seems like an opportunity for CRPA to move on from local planning. So especially if we're going to rely on a consultant to be the third-party coordinator for this, because there is some staffing that would go in, some kind of work that would go into coordinating all of that, and it's only helping to municipalities. So
The plan that we're working on is probably in about 2 months. We will ask for representatives from each municipality, whether it's the managers, somebody from their planning team, or an elected official, to come together just like we're doing the kind of future fire conversations once a month. We will do the same thing for planning. So we can start to see what the communities want from planning on a regional level moving forward.
Yeah, it just seems like kind of good timing that all of that's happening, and if you can get the intern or AmeriCorps position in the sustainability area, I think it just, because
it's why the positions, I think the world of Pam, she's doing a fantastic job, but it was also strategic to promote from within, because that gave us the opportunity to essentially cut 2 positions. If we need to expand, it's much easier to expand than it is to contract. So this gives us the reset, and we can plan out our future from here.
Yeah, I think it's very smart planning, so I'm totally in support of that. Yeah, and on the MPO, let's see, MPO, so the travel demand modeling and data access training. I don't know if Ben has insight into some of these things. I mean, I would say what we've seen from the long-range transportation plan consultant and the modeling and data that they're able to access for that has just been so incredibly helpful and really time-saving. You're going to be more efficient in your planning. You just take so much guesswork out of things, and so much of the MPO work is, it can be a little subjective sometimes, because you're having to take some anecdotal cases. So I'd be totally supportive of that.
Do like to give Marcella Hoffman a lot of credit. She's done a fantastic job of bringing in grants for the MPO. It's been very successful since that position was added.
Yeah, absolutely. The only one that I was going to ask about on here is the Bellefonte EMS item.
So this comes through. The MPO is kind of the coordinator for a number of local transportation-related grants. So even any of our municipalities who wanted to come through these programs have to come through the MPO for those. That includes Bellefonte, who wants to study the EMS. These are for the safety action plans. This is just covering some of the basic admin time that would be needed to help administer this as our role as coordinator for the safety action plan. Bellefonte is taking on the vast majority of this work. This is just an estimate of our coordination efforts. essentially 60 hours for the year. That's what we're looking at.
I mean, it's such a small number. I'm not familiar with this at all, so I guess I'm kind of neutral on it. I would be interested in understanding more about how the costs are distributed. So I wouldn't be opposed to it because of, you know, the number they're asking for, but I'm just kind of unclear about why the MPO would be paying for that and not Belfont, so.
I was gonna say, does that fall under emergency management?
Yeah, that's my question, so it's more of
Where's
just a
emergency
policy issue I
management's
have
in the
with
fire
it.
department.
Yeah, so I guess, you know, I'd be supportive of a comment under that one, you know, maybe asking for more detail on
Yeah.
how typical we're funding something under Belfont EMS or any other EMS program through the MPO. So I guess that would be the comment I would suggest if there was any other interest in a comment like that. Sure.
Anyone else on the board had any comments on CCMPO? I was gonna say, the next one was administration. I went through those and, you know, my HR committee reports, and like, especially some of these HR items, I think are very timely and, you know, much needed. I think, you know, there's some good benefits to those, and like, then on the back of the page, like, removing the deputy executive director to grant writer, administrator, IT administrator, and communications administrator, you know, I think are timely, and just kind of giving Ben a little bit more time to feel where the department, what the needs are for the department administration. But also I found it very interesting in HR that Ben brought up that he doesn't have room for those positions, but yet they were in there to, so.
I keep saying I'm in the closet, so
Right.
I don't have room for anybody else.
Right. But yeah, any comments or concerns on admin? Under COG, building capital funds to approve the phased replacement or renovation of all HVAC equipment located in the attic of the COG building.
For those who remember
I
the
guess
original
there's two
plan,
more on the other page as well, so.
we aren't planning on ripping the roof off. Sam was working on a plan to cut a hole in the ceiling of the second floor, which is how they got the equipment in originally. And then we would essentially build a hatch into the ceiling for future needs, rather than just drywalling over it like they did when the building was built.
I was gonna say, I guess you can get to it, just a different, yeah.
Currently, there's no way to get equipment in or out of the attic. There's a small hatchway for a human to go up for inspections and maintenance, and that's it.
So, yeah, COG building capital, there was nothing for refuse and recycling. There is an item under Parks and Recreation for Millbrook Marsh Nature Center this will be for the capital budget. If anyone had any comment on that item.
Yes.
Oh, I should maybe just look and see if anyone has their hands up. Yes, Ms. Strickland. Sorry about that.
I don't have to go first though, if I didn't see somebody else. So this was the project planning design for the boardwalk And I'm not supportive of having that in here. I think until there's a strategic funding plan, and also just back to Hess, until we've finished something like Hess with our regional park program, the parks that are actually in our regional park system, I won't be supportive of these kinds of large projects.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that as well.
Quick question, never mind. I need to go back to I'll ask it anyway. This was not particularly there was minimal things to be done for those dollars for the boardwalk. Is that accurate?
I'm not sure what.
Sorry, we're talking about the boardwalk, right? The 50 to 100K
So this is
in the budget, right?
the R10 proposal.
Right, yes, that's what, R10.
Yeah, this is specifically for planning and preliminary design so that the park staff can begin to apply for grants, fundraise through foundations, to put together a capital campaign around it.
So are we paying a fundraiser with that money? Like, that's what I'm trying to get some details around, or maybe to help here, because I think places like, I don't do anything.
This would essentially be to hire an engineer to put together a full plan for the boardwalk so that we can then apply for grants off of that plan.
So Lisa, you are like no planning at all, no engineering to get to a plan?
Well, we've had an engineering study done, and we've had
It
plans.
wasn't an engineering
Or we've
study.
had design studies done.
Yes, but
I
that
believe it
is,
was a feasibility study.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
This is the unfortunate nature of government in that there are multiple plans before you ever get to a project of this size. It was a feasibility study. We would have to actually have an engineer do drawings, study the area so that we can put together the plan that we would then apply for a number of grants and do the fundraising from.
Yeah.
So Lisa, you're like, no, no more plans. We need a better plan to plan. I agree, like the $2 million or $5 million, like that's off the table.
It's
100%.
not, that's the.
For me,
Okay.
what I'm saying is, but it isn't, but it is. It's not, the request right now is some dollars, which is much less than what we were seeing before, to understand get some real engineers to look at this thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't be supportive of that in
Okay.
2026. I
Okay.
think we need a fundraising strategy from the authority.
Yes.
And I think that before we spend $100,000, and that's gonna be time sensitive, if we're doing project planning, preliminary design with that money, then that has to get employed rather quickly. You can't just leave that on the shelf either. So that would funnel us right into a project. So I'm not supportive, I won't be supportive of that for 2026. I think that should be a planning year for fundraising, so that's where I'm at.
So what I would like to add then is what if we took this 50,000 to 100,000, made a recommendation to invest 25,000 in fundraising strategy? And just take this whole thing off the table and push this out. It's a net new though to a CIP, but.
Yeah,
You know, and I would just point out, one of my other points was gonna be in 2027, there's $1 million for the project. So that was gonna be my other suggestion, is to move that out.
So I would say, yes, take this and that, move both of these items out 1 year and allocate maybe 25,000, if that seems reasonable, to fundraising strategy. Just a thought.
I'm kind of like where you're coming from, like, show us ways, show us that we're gonna have more options of revenue for this asset in a floodplain than just taxpayer dollars. And yeah,
Yeah, I agree. This is what I keep getting tripped up on is, a commitment about what percentage of, I mean, how are we going to pay for this? And
Right.
and we as municipalities, if we're giving a certain amount and then what they fundraise or can get, everything's such a big question mark, but
right.
I agree with you though, Lisa. It's just, we need a strategy and a commitment that this is what we're giving, this is where we stop, and from here, this is what you can build. I mean, maybe we won't be able to replace an entire boardwalk as it exists currently. Maybe you get 2 paths of a boardwalk or something, but it just, I feel like there needs to be something more in place.
If we were to move forward with a plan, I'd want to maybe see it like versatile. Like I understand like if we had like a full build out plan, it would be, well, first it would be nice to see that there was a solid fundraising strategy, if not even like pretty solid commitments towards this. But then also if like say a DCNR grant needed the plan and we were able to actually land grants, I'd be more comfortable, especially when we get into later stages.
Right.
But I understand, for some grant funding, yeah, maybe they do need a little bit more of a solid plan, but,
So I think where I am supportive of the dollars here is I am 100% no $2, $3, $4, $5 million project. We've got to, again, take care of what we have. I'm with you, Lisa, there. However, this is similar to like voting yes to the master plan. That's going to trigger some things too, right? No matter what, in this case, they want to get some engineering studies to understand what truly the cost is. Is that accurate? Ben?
Correct, and to have some actual designs to work off.
And have something to work from. So I don't think this triggers go do something, but it certainly triggers, definitely, we have some numbers. We can go after some funding from some funders to get there. And if we give them 0, they won't get there. And we'll continue to have this outstanding, we have a boardwalk that we've shut down another section. So I think I'm in the, we got to do a little something.
I would just say the difference is that with HES, that's part of our regional park program. And so they, Harris was promised this park and it hasn't been fulfilled. And I think you can only do so much without raising taxes so much to pay for all of these things. And I think, to me, completing what needed to be done in each of the participating municipalities as far as regional parks needs to be done before we can move on to an extra thing. In 2027, we're committing ourselves to a quarter of this $1 million boardwalk replacement. So if we do this in 2026, then they move forward with the million, and that's only the determining a replacement plan for the $1 million. So,
only if it's approved.
but we're only one vote.
We're only one vote.
Every
5,
other.
so we can 5 out of 32, yeah.
Yeah, we're, our municipality is only a part of this, and I don't have confidence that others would not want to move forward with that. We're paying a quarter of it. We're paying a lot for it, and so, if I was another one who wasn't paying quite that much, I'd probably want to move forward with it too. So I think, that's just $1 million in 2027, just to, that's to evaluate the scope of the project in 2027, $1 million. So to me, the estimate of 6 to 10 million that we had from the feasibility study seems right. I think that's what it would be. And so once you commit the $1 million in 2027, you're going to have to start phasing that in 2028.
Fair. I think we're talking about, I'm talking past you. How about that? 26, I want to put a little dollars into 26 to get something. I agree with you. We need to make a comment about pushing 27.
And I don't think that will happen. So I hear what you're saying, I just don't think others will agree with that. I think whatever is here will get moved, and I think in 2028, you'll see the 6 to 10 million projects start to phase out. So that's just my opinion. So I could be wrong, but
don't you have the same opinion that we're only 5 votes of 32 for even the 26, 50 to 100? I mean, do you think 10 other elected officials are going to say no to the 50 to 100? If you're saying they're not going to say no to $1 million.
well, I'm just saying once they're all triggering the next thing. So, and like, we said earlier with Hess, we only provide the funds. It's the park authority who's making decisions about things. So we're just saying yes to funds for that. And so that's my piece on it.
Mr. Heller.
If I may, in conversations both in finance, general forum, and here, I've not heard one alternative to replacing the boardwalk, such as get rid of it completely and put up an observation tower, like you see in other nature areas, that looks out over everything. This is in a floodplain. This is only going to get worse with future climate predictions. I would be okay with changing this completely and saying, here's $50,000 to investigate alternative uses and alternative ways of exploring Millbrook Marsh that are conducive and effective, knowing that climate is going to be changing. Nobody's had that conversation. Yes. Nobody's presented anything differently. I'd like to see money allocated for that, and maybe this is how that money could be used.
There's our comment.
There's our comment. I like that one. I like that one.
$50,000 to explore alternatives.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mr. Executive Director? Sounds good.
This is your game. I enact what it is that you all agree to.
Okay, copy.
So I have no
thoughts on it. Copy that.
My only other thought too was about it's such a small amount of money, but anyway, it was about widening the doorway to that service building. And I was confused, there's some talk about getting rid of that altogether and, spending money, I understand it needs to be accessible or to have the threshold or whatever, but, it just seemed to me spending a lot of money on a building that is one that was talked about getting rid of. I was confused by that, but.
Is that the service building?
Yes.
Okay, so that one's not getting evaluated until 2028 now. 28 to 30.
Oh, yeah, back in.
Oh, all right, then.
Okay.
Then never mind my comment.
Which is interesting, because that had been kind of an emergency item.
Exactly.
Oh.
I'm so confused by that, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I was given this an hour and our time has expired on that, and it looks like we're about a little over 2/3 of the way through, so want to give it another half hour?
Or just ask for folks' specific comments to anything. Go through with it. Defer to the team.
I think those are probably the longer discussion items.
Let's see, there was Millbrook Marsh operating budget, aquatics, some aquatics items. There was a library item, regional parks.
Sorry, where are you?
We're still within Millbrook Marsh. If we're done with the boardwalk, there was some operating budget items.
Where were you?
I skipped through active adult and aquatics and all that.
We may move past those things, Chair.
Yeah. Well, I'll just take us to a place that if anyone wants to catch up, and that was the picnic tables at Whitehall Road. Yeah, I just felt like 20 picnic tables might be a lot right now.
Sounds like a picnic.
Yeah, I wonder, does it say how many that buys?
I thought it said 20 in the description. Well, I read it somewhere else. I thought it was like 20 picnic tables. And 2 of them would have been handicap accessible or something. And I like the idea of the handicap accessible ones because, especially with the All Abilities Playground there.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes,
I would
Mr.
imagine
Howell?
those would last a while too.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, if we go back to C21, I'm just calling out that we're going to be buying a trailer that in part is used to move picnic tables.
Oh.
I'm just making a connection for folks.
Replacing one that moves.
Yeah, that moves picnic tables. So we're buying picnic tables and the equipment to move them.
But we're not buying the skid loader that can use a forklift attachment to move the tables.
Oh, I like that.
They got those too.
Drawing attention.
Sorry, now I've lost my place.
While we're waiting, were there any other major comments that you heard kind of writ large over your travels?
Well, let me take a quick look in this area. The kitchen equipment was something for everybody because nobody could understand how we can build a kitchen for $10,000. That's why I went ahead and hit that early because you can't think of a normal kitchen with that. We've had several comments or at least questions. Some of the municipalities submitted questions ahead of time, and then I had answers to provide them at the meeting, and that changed what their official comments would be. The questions around the trail surface conversion, and that's not a necessity. This is a matter of with the way the trails are currently set up, it requires a lot of pesticide to be sprayed to keep the weeds down through the area. It is an ADA approved material, but it is not the most accessible material. Those would be better off as an asphalt or concrete surface to provide better mobility around those parks. Maintenance staff also, due to the crazy weather, has had to spend a lot more time raking back and filling in new stone because of all the washouts that have been happening. That would not be the case with asphalt. We've had some comments made, or at least questions raised about Welch and replastering. I pointed out that this has already been put off, I think, 6 years now. And I actually visited Todd while he was working on them. We can share some photos here, but he has to hand grind out every rough section within the pool and hand plaster himself. It's a patchwork pool at this point. That's not something we can just keep delaying forever and ever. That's supposed to be done every 10 years. I believe that was like 2009, 2010, or I'm sorry. That was done, I believe, 2009 or 2010, which means we are now 15 to 16 years into a 10-year surface.
Yes, Mr. Heller.
Please, Mr. Patterson.
Mr. Patterson.
It's okay. I think as long as we've continued to look at adjusting our funding model, our revenue model at the pools, I think we gotta do. They're good pools. I think a lot of people visit it that are not residents, and so is that funding model appropriate?
Highly encourage you to attend the agents or the authority meeting where they will be discussing fee structure.
Or somebody can tell me about it, and then we can talk about how much we're funding going forward.
Send your representative to advocate on your behalf.
Oh, yeah, we have a rep. Corey, yeah. Great, thank you.
Very welcome.
Any others on, I
Does
guess,
anybody
just through the,
About the picnic tables, does anybody else think that that figure is a little excessive in the beginning?
you said, what you were saying, like 20 picnic tables?
Well, I think it said, well, when.
That's how much the space can hold.
Right.
At least 20 tables.
Oh, okay.
They are asking for $30,000 to buy at least 2 ADA tables and as many others as they can get for that amount of money. We're trying to move more towards the recycled plastic kind of material because of all the warping we've seen with the wooden tables at various parks. I believe one of the aquatics items was replacing them at Welch. If you've been to Welch, you'll see that a lot of the tables are much more U-shaped than flat. We've been replacing board after board after board for years now, but by moving to recycled plastic, those typically hold up for a very long period of time.
So so my question about that then is, the ones at Welch Pool, they are not under a pavilion,
They are not.
but these would be.
Yes.
So maybe they wouldn't, the wooden one, because
It's
recycled
moisture,
plastic,
not.
it tends to get really, really hot. Because I have that Trek stick, you know.
Yep, same thing.
And I can imagine sitting on that in shorts and just, anyway.
Very hot,
Okay.
yeah.
I just didn't know if they, by being under the pavilion, they'd be the wooden ones. I don't know.
It would be out of the shade, or be out of the sun. There.
More or less, depending on the angle of the sun. But, okay. Anyway. So I'm supportive of picnic tables. I don't know. I don't know how much picnic tables cost, or at least public ones,
Yeah,
I don't know if just $30,000 seemed like a lot to me.
a basic wood table that you can get from the Home Depot, like $129. But of course, if they're going with like that Trex material, that is gonna be a little bit more expensive.
I got a guy who comes out of Philly, we'll take care of it.
I guess my comment would be back on the pool picnic tables, to consider maybe having some that are not that composite material. It does just get so hot, so, as opposed to the wood, but I'm not opposed to, refurbishing them, obviously.
No, I'm not opposed to refurbishing the pool ones either.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I like that they'll have the ADA accessible tables at Whitehall. That's great.
Okay. Any other comments? I guess, just comments through the duration of the comment guide. Yes,
I only
Mr.
have two. One is on the lighting for Hess Field. The cost estimate was $5,000 to $306. Is that right? Am I reading this right? The cost
If you
estimate?
go through the actual proposal, you'll see that there are options being provided to you that range from $5,000 to $367,000. The lights are in not great shape at Hess Field. The poles have a bit of a lean to them. The electrical leading into the park is newer, but the poles themselves and the lights are the originals. So if we simply want to look from a safety standpoint and say just take them down, it's probably about $5,000 to just take the lights down. At that point, we cancel any night games that we would have. And those are the only lit ball fields that we have. And I believe within the proposal section, they did list how many night games they expect that would affect. You could put new lights up at Hess Field at the same time, which has a cost to it. That would also be affected by the fact that we're in the process of approving a master plan, and those fields are going to be moved, which means any lights that we install there will also have to be moved when we do that reorganization. Or another option would be that we take the lights down at Hess Field and we install lights out at Oak Hall and begin to hold the night games at Oak Hall instead. And then after the master plan is put into effect for Hess Field, we light the fields at that time at Hess.
How much would it even cost to do rental lighting?
That I don't know.
Of course, whether or not that would, be adequate or.
It certainly could be a comment that you had that we should explore rental lighting in addition to taking down the existing lights.
That would go over well with our trailer bathroom and rental.
So you want the comment to be which option you prefer?
You don't have to choose any of them. But rather than submitting 3 separate proposals on the same topic, they combine everything into one. These are the variety of options for handling this particular issue. If you have a preference of those 3, then yes, please comment on your preference.
So on option 2, replacing the field lights, would those replacements be in line with the new plan, the new master plan?
The style, but we cannot put them in the location for the new plan. The fields all have to be, all 3 fields would be moved in that plan.
And the idea of doing this before construction starts on the master plan.
So this was brought up as one of the authority meetings was held at Hess Field this year in order to give the authority members the opportunity to see where things are, primarily to discuss the bathroom situation there. But a number of authority members brought up the lighting, as they can see the lean of the poles and the age of the lights that are actually up there. I think the derecho storm that came through also scared a number of people. Had that storm been just a bit down the road, those lights would have all been down. They could not have held up to that storm. And so they at least wanted options on taking those lights down. Taking the lights down means canceling night games unless we put new lights up somewhere.
Yes, Mr. Heller.
If I may just kind of get out my crystal ball here, if we look at replacing option 2, the field lights at Hess for $300,000, that means we're going to essentially have to double that because they're going to have to be taken down and then put back up when the strategic plan is actually executed at some point down the road. So that's 2 times 300,000 plus inflation, approximately, say, 750,000. If we then, but option 3 is essentially the same cost. Install lights over at Oak Hall. In the meantime, take down the other ones. And then once the master plan is executed at Hess, boom, that's when you put your lights up for 350, 400,000, given everything else. So I see the third option as essentially in the long term costing the same as the second option, because you're essentially getting 2 fields or 2 areas for the 2 lights that you're installing instead of 1 field for the 2 lights you're installing once the master plan is executed.
Yes.
Okay, I would go with option 3. We're not having any lights at all, which is the $5,000 option.
I think I'm torn between ROI for these lights and basic public good. There's gonna be some kids and some adults having fun at a night game. I was one of those kids having fun at night games and under the lights and such, so that's
This is why
I think we-
the big bucks.
yeah, I think we just, I like Matt's idea, let's toss out option 3 if no one else is objecting. I think that I would agree with that, and then when it gets down to the budget, and it's, hey, here, Ferguson, here's how much more we want from you, as opposed to next, as opposed from last year, then we're gonna start having some discussions. I think that'll yield something different, so.
And just to confirm, did any of the other municipalities offer to pay more, and so Ferguson could pay less?
They have not.
I thought I'd ask. Okay.
Still one more municipality to go after this one.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if you want to put in a request to college.
They're not, yeah, okay.
There's a comment, Ferguson pay less, done.
Ferguson pay less, yeah, Ferguson pay less, if I can go with that comment.
I mean, I definitely think 3 makes the most sense, but this is a big new capital item to incorporate into the budget when we see the budget, so I think something else is gonna have to give somewhere else, so.
So, if I may, maybe it would be good at budget time to understand the revenue generated by the night games that currently exist at Hessfield.
I'm sure Jeff can.
Okay.
It's not going to be $300,000.
No, it's not. And that's not the role of government. Government provides services that individuals cannot. But just to have those numbers might give some perspective.
And I will, state, one of the things we, have been preaching is, that I don't want COG staff selling things to the municipalities. We're not out here begging that you need to do this, you need to do that. But I do think it is important that we consider, the human side of things. As Amari was mentioning, the experiences from his childhood, and Parks and Recreation is one of those areas where we are never going to get that strong ROI on things in a dollars and cents perspective. It really is about the experiences. We just had a huge tournament down at Hess this past weekend, and you see the hundreds of kids that are out there playing, and you recognize that, yes, these things do make an impact on their lives. I think probably all of us played on a childhood field at some point, and we didn't think about where it came from or who was paying for it, but somebody did that for us. And those are the difficult things that we're faced with here is how good of an experience can we provide for local residents, and then on the economic development side for these tournaments, what do we need to provide to continue to bring outsiders in to drive up additional business to the area.
I think I have a comment about that as well, too. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Matt. And it has to do with the sponsorship thing, is that sometimes I feel like we are giving up our park space to our residents just for some additional revenue from a sponsorship, and would like that to be really weighed heavily about fairness of times of field and access to fields or things like that. Because we really...
I know that at least with like the court use specifically, because I was just reviewing that one, it is in the policies on rentals that I believe it's, if there are 4 courts, at least 2 courts have to remain open. Nobody can reserve all the courts at one time so that they stay available for local use. So if somebody is, trying to do a tennis tournament or something like that, they can only get 2 of those 4 courts for that. The other 2 courts have to remain available to the public. So I know that Parks and Rec does try as much as possible to keep access available for locals, even amidst larger events.
Great, thank you.
My last comment was going to be on the next item, which was the conversion, it's R15 conversion from stone to asphalt at either Oak Hall or Whitehall, and I guess I would suggest a comment to do it at Whitehall because we have the ADA playground, so if that was it looked like it was a question on preference, so that would be my comment.
I'd be good with that. Yes, Matt?
Oh, no, I'd be good with that as well.
Oh, okay.
I got another comment for another item.
I was gonna say I was now an hour and a half into this, so I would either entertain the board to plead me to give them more time or entertain a motion to move these comments forward.
This will take 8 seconds, then I'm happy to put a motion.
You're good.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I've noticed the special events attendance has dropped in recent years, maybe by about 1,300. Having lights at Oak Hall might be a great thing to find ways that you could host special events overnight. Scouting groups, others, etc. What other opportunities are there? That was my only comment. So let's see here. Back to maybe page 1 or 2 for a motion. You got it pulled up. Sorry, I'm all over this, so I apologize.
I got you.
You got it?
Yeah. I move to direct the township manager to forward its comments and draft of the 2026 SGSI to the executive director who's here. And also, I guess, take his own notes.
This is Lisa, I'll second.
Got a motion by Mr. Patterson, second by Ms. Strickland. Any further discussion?
No.
Okay. I think we're good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. Okay. Motion passes. At this time, I will call for a 5-minute recess, subject to the call of the chair. We will adjourn at 7:46. Back at it. Yep. I'll wait and help CNET get a clean cut. All right, I call back to order the Ferguson Township Board of Supervisors meeting. We will now move to item 7.4, the review and authorization to advertise for a public hearing on the draft 2026-2030 Ferguson Township Capital Improvement Program, and I will recognize the Township Manager.
Thank you, Chair. Provided with the agenda is a narrative. In short, the Board of Supervisors reviewed the proposed 2026 to 2030 Capital Improvement Program Plan on June 25th and June 26th. At the end of the review on June 26th, the board, as you may recall, flagged items and had consensus comments and made some comments in terms of allocation of funds. Those changes have been made and incorporated to what's been presented to you this evening, recognized as the proposed 2025-2026 CIP. And this evening, the board is asked to review to confirm that those changes have been made and authorize legal advertisement for the public hearing to be held on August 5th to take action on the 2025-2030 CIP. Recommended motion is provided within the agenda packet. It says 15 minutes, but you are not required to take 15 minutes for the conversation, but you are welcome to as well.
Right.
I'd like to take the 15 minutes.
20. All right, so we are on the clock. I was going to say, I was going to recognize Ms. Strickland. I believe you had at least a follow-up you wanted to
I only
touch
had
base on?
a comment on one item, because the township had received a letter about Airport Road. And since we hadn't done the road tour, my suggestion was gonna be to maybe flip Airport Road and Bergman Court, 2027 and 2028. Since we weren't able to see that, and it sounded like it was significant, so.
So I do recall going down Airport Road, and I did see that communication, and it's been a couple years, but it was in really rough shape.
Yeah, and I have been down within the last couple years too.
And if I'm correct, it leads to a church as well as even, I think, a recreation area, so it does have a little bit more than just local traffic on it. So.
Yeah.
Does the field have lights?
Does the field have lights? Good question.
Come on now.
Yeah, I'd be good with that.
Sure.
So, okay, so Bergman goes to 28, or,
I was looking at a way to kind of balance it without making a
Yeah.
budgetary change in it, so I was looking at Bergman, which we know is very limited traffic, at this point, and.
right.
Switching that one out. 'cause there's
Interestingly enough, this one concerns me here. I guess it's being worked on already, so we're good. So, we can toss this, CIP impact.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say we are going to dismiss it. I would like to be able to sit down and hear the concerns and just confirm what the issue is with the resident. But yes, I will say it's my understanding it's being addressed.
Picture 2 is terrible. Like, this is, when I tell people about Ferguson Township roads, I'm not talking about this. So it's kind of like, this is pretty bad. And so none of the roads that we're talking about look like this.
And this is
actually,
for-
in
this
the
is for-
CIP
actually,
for 26.
Is that 45?
Yeah, but I don't think that's completed.
That's not complete, though.
Yeah,
That's-
it's in progress.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
it's in
It
progress.
hasn't been coded.
Yeah,
and-
I would feel better
Yeah.
being sure that I have time to meet with this individual citizen that we heard at the podium this
Okay, very good.
evening to better understand what the issue is. But yes, this is a project currently in progress. I do not anticipate for it to be
To
like
look
that.
like that once it's done.
But I'm most comfortable to confirm that before I state that publicly, officially.
So what I would say, Lisa, what your thought, the roads and the years to me don't matter. It's really about the budget and the direction of, we want decent roads, nothing that looks like this uncompleted mess, right? Like everything's good, decent in the township. Not, I won't say good. I think it's decent, drivable. There's no potholes. Like at least for me, it's just an intent. And so if airport's the better one, then as long as we provide the funding for airport, we're good. And I guess I don't want to get into the specific roads too much. I want to give the staff the kind of bounds and the funding to go, hit whatever's necessary. That's my view on that.
Yeah, and even, I don't have a problem leaving Bergman. My suggestion would just be to move up Airport Road.
That's the other thing too, considering the condition of airport, like, we may even be at a place where maybe a whole repave, it's like definitely in a significantly worse off condition than Bergman, which would require a lot less intensive maintenance to rehab it.
Right, I think that's why those two, looking this.
I'm happy to make the motion to include Bergman a year earlier from a wordsmithing.
Airport,
the
you
CIP.
mean?
Airport a year earlier from a wordsmithing perspective.
Happy to move that up a year, if that's the consensus, yes, absolutely.
I'm good with it.
Sure.
Is there more?
Yeah, any other follow-up items? Otherwise, we're ready to present this for advertisement.
My only other comment, and this isn't to add, but it is just a note that we received another public comment on street lighting in Fox Point that was included in the manager's report, and so I just wanted to note that for a future CIP discussion. That can be kind of problematic where there's, sidewalks here and not here in some of our existing neighborhoods, and so just to note for future discussion, on the street lighting, I think it's important, especially in residential areas where there are not sidewalks consistently. So a note for the next CIP review to kind of look at where that street lighting is and is not.
In my neighborhood, we're required to have house lights because we don't have street lights.
Oh, that's nice to know. Okay.
Is that all neighborhoods? I thought that was all across the township. Oh, interesting.
And it might
Okay.
it might vary based on a PRD too, and so.
Land development plan, HOAs, there's quite a few, and then we have a sidewalk ordinance that specifically states where there has to be continuous or where there's a break, depending on what we take in as ownership to maintain. So there's some various levels here to evaluate for sure.
Yeah. Cool.
And it's all within our existing policy.
Copy.
Yeah.
Where did you want that noted in the CIP? Is there a specific place?
Wherever it's appropriate. I had just noticed, we did the streetlight assessment report in there as well. So, maybe if you're talking about the streetlight assessment or,
I do think that it'll be a natural conversation when we bring back for the board. You might recall at a previous meeting, we presented the ordinance and observations as we did a manual assessment, and we're bringing it back to the board for an amendment to the policy for streetlight as well as fire hydrant ordinance, and that should be tentatively on for August 19th. I believe that's what I reported in the report as well. So it'll be a nice segue into that conversation. So before CIP next year.
Okay, before CIP next year,
You can integrate this comment into the discussion when we review sidewalk ordinance, or excuse me, streetlight ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I had seen that public comment too, and definitely thank that young person for, regardless of your age, or even if you can vote to be participating in your local government and letting your voice be heard. So
absolutely
appreciate that. So
We responded. I don't think it's, and I apologize. My response to the individual, we did respond, so I can send that out. And so,
yeah, again, it's,
the parent responded and was really grateful that we, took time, and I sent that, it was a letter that we mailed to the individual.
Oh, that's very nice. Good.
Yeah, it's probably the third one this year where there's direct correspondence to me as the manager requesting for something, and then we do a response, and parents are generally pretty excited about that, because they're doing it on their own, or the one did acknowledge that it was a classroom, I've been asked to engage in local government, so here's a letter advocating for X. And so it is always a delight to read them.
as one of our planning commission members like to say when we had students in the room during planning commission meetings, so for us to help you get an A on your paper, we're gonna, this is what we're talking about.
Those are my only two notes.
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the draft 2026-2030 capital improvement plan with a modification for moving Airport Road a year earlier. And advertise the plan with public hearing scheduled for August 5th, 2025.
And do we have a second?
And this is Patty, I'll second.
Got a motion by Mr. Patterson, second by Ms. Stevens. So all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. All right. Motion passes. Next up, we will have a public hearing on a resolution in Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania, authorizing the submission of an application for county aid for county liquid fuels funds. And I will recognize the Township Manager.
Thank you, Chair. Provided with the agenda is a brief narrative that summarizes that the township had submitted and received Center County Liquid Fuels grant funding in 2019, I believe, as well as 2020. And in recent correspondence with the county, we had identified that because we had not submitted the MS-339 form that would essentially allow for the processing of the $50,000 grant for the TASA grant award that we received notification in 2019. It's a result of not executing this document. And then, of course, we submitted in 2024 for another Center County Liquid Fuels grant, and we are ready to process to receive those funds. But again, the MS-339 form needs to be executed as a result to receive the funding, and that is for the 11 ADA curb ramps that we have already initiated process for to have that done. So it's more procedural and looking for the board to approve a resolution that would essentially just give authorization to complete the required PennDOT form, recognized as an MS-339, 2 separate forms for each of the grant awards from the county. Happy to answer any questions. It is a public hearing. Provided with the agenda is a recommended motion.
And looking at our only attendee for the public hearing. I think, okay, you're good. Then I will close the public hearing, being that nobody has any comments for the public hearing. Any board questions or just a motion on this?
This is Matt. I move that the Board of Supervisors moves to adopt the resolution.
This is Patty, I'll second.
Okay, got a motion by Mr. Heller, second by Ms. Stevens. Any discussion? If none, I will recognize the Township Manager to call the roll.
Thank you, Chair. This is resolution for 2025-19. Supervisor Patterson.
Yes.
Supervisor Stevens.
Yes.
Supervisor Heller.
Yes.
Supervisor Strickland.
Yes.
Supervisor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. You have a resolution that passes unanimously.
All right. And our next item will be a public hearing on an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinance to accept the deed of dedication of M&G Realty Incorporated, PA Corporation, for additional right-of-way along Blue Course Drive related to the Rudders development. And I will recognize the Township Manager.
Thank you, Chair. This provided with the agenda is a brief narrative. Essentially, we are asked this evening to hold a public hearing for a ordinance adoption to accept the deed of dedication for what is recognized as M&G Realty Incorporated for additional right-of-way along Blue Course Drive related to the Rudders development. So this is, again, more procedural. Provided with the agenda is a memo that details more information, and provided with the agenda is also a recommended motion.
All right, this is a public hearing, just checking in. Okay, we have no one for the public hearing, so I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion on this.
So moved.
And did we have a second?
This is Matt. I'll second.
Any discussion? If not, I will recognize the Township Manager to call the roll.
Thank you, Chair. This is a ordinance amendment, an ordinance adoption to amend the Code of Ordinance to accept the deed of dedication. And I'll go ahead and begin the roll call. Supervisor Stevens?
Yes.
Supervisor Heller?
Yes.
Supervisor Strickland?
Yes.
Supervisor Thompson?
Yes.
Supervisor Patterson?
Yes.
Ordinance amendment passes unanimously.
All right, so we had covered items 7.7 and 7.8. And we will have communications to the board. Yes, Ms. Stevens.
I've had communications about asking about the status of Whitehall Road Regional Park, and I have also from residents asking about the if to have township staff or somebody look at the intersection of Aaron Drive and Curtin Street for parking issues and sort of not being able to see electric scooters and electric bikes that come off of the Viro bike path. And it's difficult because parking is on the side that actually prohibits people approaching that intersection to see it. So just looking at that again, for safety.
Yes, Mr. Heller.
I've had correspondences with folks in Pine Grove Mills related to loud vehicles and speeding. Guess to the earlier comment, you know, getting out there, et cetera, so.
Any others? I did have some correspondence on the tenants' bill of rights and water service concerns, so.
Can I just use this time to just say thank you to the Ferguson Township Police Department? They were the hit of the block party. They were so well received. Everybody just loved it, so thank you.
Absolutely, I'll pass that along to the group that went up there.
Thank you.
And I guess I'll just add as well, I actually had the privilege of joining the Center County Farm Bureau for their summer picnic, and I was gonna say, there's a lot of farmers from Ferguson Township that actually attend those meetings, and one of the interesting things to note, Center County is actually the #1 county in the country for policy items that the Center County Farm Bureau brings out to Pennsylvania and beyond. So a lot of the policies that the Farm Bureau presents to Harrisburg and Washington, a good number of those ideas come out of Center County farmers. So very interesting. So calendar items. We had mentioned CCMPO open house earlier in the meeting. There will be a municipal mixer on July 23rd at Autumnwood Park. And with that, I will ask Patty to present item number 10.
Motion to adjourn.
And do we have a second?
Opposed.
Opposed?
Are you gonna?
Okay, we are adjourned. Have a good evening, folks.